To record. Thank you so much. I'd like to call the Plan Commission meeting to order on Tuesday, February 28th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. Janelle, could you please take roll call?
Bertle,
Here.
Bell,
Here.
Zashki,
Here.
Kane,
Here.
Shampoo,
Here.
and Gretzmacher and Schmitz are excused.
Approval of the agenda. I would like to remove 6J Neighborhood Park Planning from the agenda unless Plan Commission members feel differently. Parks has already addressed this. Patrice?
I would like to have a little discussion on that before it's removed.
Okay, all right. Then we will leave it on. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented then?
So moved.
Motion by Zashki,
Second.
second by Bell. All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of January 24th, 2023 meeting minutes. I have quite a few corrections to make, if you will bear with me. On page 7, line 22, it says landscaping is required to screen the residents from the highway. I believe that should be the parking lot. And because the residence is being asked to be turned into a business, most people don't want to screen the business. Then on page 9, line 11, White had given any thought to simply removing the easternmost driveway. It should be the westernmost driveway. On page 11, line 32, the commission members agreed that for the time being, sidewalks should be plural. Page 12, line 44, within the development, he went on and D needs to be added. Those are my corrections. Does anybody else have anything? Then a motion to approve as amended would be appropriate.
So moved.
Motion by Bell,
Second.
second by Shampoo. All those in favor respond with an aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Item 6A, draft development agreement to convert residence to restaurant and accessory residential use, Peach Barn Farmhouse and Brewery. Julie?
All right, so we did discuss this last meeting and there were some concerns.
Did you skip over?
And the applicant did revise their plans to address those concerns. I'll real quickly go through those. We had wanted to see a more detailed landscaping plan, so they did submit that. We had to talk about signage, so they clearly understood what signage was allowed. They decided to just not address signage at this time at all. That'll be addressed in the future, and they understand that it'll take permits and what the requirements are. We needed an easement for a future sidewalk, so they did draw an 11-foot wide easement on the plans, and they do know that we would have to have the easement actually drafted up, recorded. They understand they would have to pay for that. The parking plan needed to show the actual dimensions of the stalls and have at least one designated for ADA, and they have done that. That's in the plan. And then the elevation view on the back of the building they indicated there would be a rail there, but it wasn't on the plan, so they did add that to the plan. And then when it came to the lights, they had a pole light and it didn't meet our requirements for night sky protection. So they revised that. They also had some string lights, and we had asked that they get different lights that were under 200 lumen. And they actually came back with some lights that were 120 lumen, so almost half of what we had required. Because they had provided everything we had asked for, I did go ahead and put in a draft development agreement in case the Plan Commission was okay with everything. Then we could move it forward to the board, but certainly if we're not ready yet, we don't have to. It's just that it's in there kind of in case we were to that point. So.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. On page 18, number 10, you have deliveries are to occur at the brewery. No commercial deliveries are to be made to the restaurant. And that's okay with them? And why did you put that in there?
I put that in there because when I had talked with them initially about loading zones and things of that nature, they had indicated that all their deliveries occurred at the brewery.
Okay,
So I wanted to make sure that they didn't come back, and once we have delivery trucks blocking that parking lot, I'm like, if that's where you say that it happens, we're going to make sure that's where it happens, so it doesn't jeopardize any other part of the project.
okay. And then on number 11, there shall be no dumpsters, barrels, bins, accumulation of trash or recycling outside the restaurant. Well, if they're going to come in the future to get a conditional use permit for the pergola, which will have some picnic tables in it, I think that they should have some attractive trash and recycling bins able to be outside for the convenience of their customers.
Yeah, the reason why that was on there is the applicant had indicated that they bring all the trash down to the brewery area and they use those dumpsters. You know, we have no dumpster area designated on the site plan. And when I had talked to them, they had indicated that all occurred down by the brewery. So
Okay.
again, it was a way to enforce what they said.
But I think they'd still want a trash can by the pergola if people are buying food in the restaurant.
Oh, I understand what you're saying, Denise. I understand. I understand what you're
So,
saying.
I understand about the dumpsters, but a barrel or a bin for trash should be allowed for just the cleanliness and the convenience of their clientele.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was thinking more large garbage accumulation, cleaning up, and you're right, we need to address that day-to-day throwing your plate away thing. So,
Right, right.
So we can revise that and should revise that.
Okay. Looking at page 20, this kind of the landscaping plan. I understand that the Whites are willing to give the village an 11-foot easement, which where their sign is, and it will go across the entirety of their property. And I'm a little concerned that when that might happen, that they simply have no place to put a sign.
Well, it is showing it as going across that whole easement. I really don't think it does, but the other thing is it could go if, as an example, if you would go to the left and up, it could go between that stall and the driveway. But that is a good point. I mean, it is something they're going to have to think about it. I'm not sure if there's room on the other side of the driveway there or not, but you know, it could be it could be made narrower. The way I believe I have this written is they can have that sign in the easement, it just can't be in the sidewalk.
Okay,
Then I can double check that.
okay. But I just wanted the whites to be okay with, it might be challenging, not that I want them to give up the the easement, but to think long and hard on when that sidewalk would go in, where they would relocate that sign. I don't want them to have a problem in the future.
Yeah. good-
Denise,
Yes,
this is Sarah and Jason. I really appreciate that. Part of why we didn't submit the signage request yet and permit is we're kind of contemplating all of that. So we do have a couple ideas, but we'll be working through that over the next month or so, and then we'll be, bringing back for sign permitting and all of that. But
okay.
we appreciate your thoughts on that as well.
And then once the easement does go in, we will for sure move that sign.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you'd have a good spot to put it, so.
You know,
okay.
Denise, I think something else that's worth mentioning about that sign and that easement is you can have more of a human scale sign, since you're not going to have people going by at 30 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour there. So the size of the sign isn't as important there. So I mean, that's another consideration to have when you're thinking about signage. When you're actually getting people going by, the size of the sign is not nearly as significant.
Yeah, Nate, I think that's well said.
Yep, good point, Nate. So on page 21, the elevation of the front of the business, the windows that are to the left of the front doors do not have, they're just the 4 panels. Is there a way, is that what the window is like now? So you don't want to replace it to match it, that has, more of the mullions like the other ones, if that's the word I'm looking for?
Exactly. There will come a day we need to replace that, but we have other, future state potentially adding doors, like French doors or something, but financially we're not able to do that this go around.
Okay,
So we're keeping the windows. They're fine for another couple years, but we do plan eventually to flip that out.
okay, all right. And then on your landscaping, you state that the greenery and evergreen trees are measuring 4 feet in height, and you'll keep them trimmed to that height so people can still see, your building, your business. It'll just kind of buffer some of the parking. You're not going to let them grow and block the whole view of your business, are you?
No,
Okay.
we'll trim them. Yeah, we'll keep them at 4 feet.
Okay,
Denise,
yes.
I have a question. I'm looking at this map and it looks like there's just one driveway in and the same driveway out. Is that correct?
What page are you on, Patrice?
I'm looking at the landscaping page, page 19 or 20.
Nope, that other driveway is still there. It's off to the left.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm
Yep.
just worried about safety pulling in and out of there on the highway,
Mhm.
and it's a drinking establishment, so.
Sure. So those were my comments and questions pertaining to what was presented. Does anybody else have anything? Julie, do you want to say anything about the development agreement?
I do. So the development agreement, as you know, reflects these items we've talked about the last 2 meetings. If we're ready to move forward with that, I'll just make a revision regarding the garbage to make sure that's addressed. And then I think just so everyone's clear, I'm gonna add some language about that sign being allowed in the easement as long as it's not on the sidewalk.
Okay. Okay. So we just need to approve the development plan, or we need to approve the new plans?
What we
and
should
then the
do,
Development agreement.
yeah, what we should do is approve the plans, because the development agreement references the plans approved on a certain date.
Okay,
So that'd be the first action, is to approve the plans. And then the second one would be to recommend the development agreement with the changes mentioned be forwarded to the board for approval.
okay, so then a motion would be ordered to approve the
What-
site plan, the landscaping plan, the lighting plan, the floor plan, elevation views, and approve building materials and colors as presented tonight.
One thing I would like to mention to you, Julie, is do we want to say that can't be in the sidewalk, or it can't impede, pedestrians or whatever usage is on there? And I'm not thinking about the whites, but properties sell, we always have to think beyond the current property owner. Just to say, because you could have it not be on the proper, not on the sidewalk, just to have a more general statement saying we don't want it to impinge upon the use of the easement. Whatever you think the best words are for that.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, normally you wouldn't want anything in that easement. That's just the way it is. In this case, I think we almost have to say that we would allow it, just as long as it's not, you're right, infringing with the use of the sidewalk or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Bell,
Second,
Second,
a second by Kane. All those in favor respond with an aye.
aye.
Opposed? Carried. And is there a motion to recommend the development agreement to the village board as presented?
so moved.
Motion by Zashki,
Second by Bell.
second by Bell. All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Item 6B, draft development agreement to move the fourplex on site by Paula Anschutz at 2387 Ava Hope Court. Julie?
All right, I'm gonna jog your memories, and I think Patrice, I don't know if you weren't on the committee at this time, but last spring, we had given Paul Anschutz some waivers to be able to move fourplex onto a property out on Ava Hope. And the only we gave her waivers for open space and some things like that, and we basically approved it, but we said you need a variance, and once you get that variance, come back for a development agreement. So she did. She got the variance this spring. So she is back before us now with the development agreement. And you can see it's pretty basic. I just site plan has already been approved on this one. So the development agreement details would be the property cannot be used as a short-term rental. I put that in there because that was part of our discussions in the past. The property is not to be used for commercial purposes unless expressly permitted by the municipal code. The fenced-in area for the trash and recycling is required and does need the authorization of a separate zoning permit. And just so you know, Paul and I have already talked about that, the need for that permit and what it costs and stuff. The bike rack shall be maintained in an orderly fashion and kept free of weeds or other hindrances to maximize the use of alternate transportation. And then I have that all utilities shall be buried. Since the time that I sent this agreement to Paula, she did have one question or concern. And I did send it to our attorney, but unfortunately he wasn't able to get back to me before the meeting. But she had a concern about item 11 that says that the owner cannot, the developer cannot have a claim against the village. In other words, they can't sue us over anything. And she was concerned that may prevent her from a claim regarding a past incident involving a dirt pile. She's not saying she's going to sue the village. She was just wondering, she's like, well, what if someday I want to, or I need to do that. Would this preclude me from doing that? And I said, the way it's written, yes, potentially, the village could either say, I'm sorry, take it or leave it. This is the way it's written. Or they could agree to maybe exempt that one case. I've never run into this before in looking through the files or since I've been here on this. Usually, it's been accepted the way it is, that part of it, the legal part of it. So she is okay with the development agreement as drafted, but would like to have section 11 changed to say that if there were a claim against that case involving the dirt, that would be exempt from that part of the development agreement. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, Rob?
My question on that would be, all right, my comment for my fellow plan commission members would be, if you're not aware, previously the village board via the village attorney clarified on this matter of the dirt pile that was referenced, that it's an issue between Paula and the owner of the dirt, not an issue of the villages. So my point in mentioning that is, whether or not that affects how somebody wants to like or not like that statement in there. I just wanted to clarify for anyone who might not have been aware. It's the dirt pile itself is something that the village took no interest in, and our village attorney supported that the village had no interest in.
And to remind everybody, not so very long ago when we were dealing with Fred and Fuzzies and the new owners and their development, and they had redlined a variety of different things. And when it came right down to it, and we talked about it at that time, the development agreement is pretty much non-negotiable. And it is what it is for everyone, and we treat everybody the same. So to change something of that nature, I think, okay, we're getting feedbacks from somebody. I don't know who it is. Would be remiss of us, and that's my personal opinion.
May I say something?
When we're done, Paula.
Oh.
Rob?
I had one other point or question I wanted to offer out. Regarding the points that Julie highlighted from the staff report, the development agreement on page 42 in the packet. Item 1, the property shall not be utilized as a short-term rental, and I know that's been discussed before. My question is, are we correct still to say that the sole use of that will be employee housing? And if so, does that mean that in all instances, there will be no charge, payroll deduction, or otherwise to any employee who is residing there? Because it would seem to me, if we would be charging employees, be they J1s or transient seasonal employees, if we would be charging them or deducting from their paychecks for housing, that may be very hard philosophically to separate from a short-term rental situation.
No, because these people would be there longer than 30 days, and I don't know a J1 or anybody, when housing is provided for them and they take advantage of it, that does not pay something out of their weekly paycheck to go for that. So I don't find that a concern at all.
Okay, I'm not referencing the students who would be what we would term your full-time or your prime, the J1 students for whom you're the prime, a primary employer, where you have a signed contract that they're there for, the season. I'm talking about particularly when fall comes and when some J1s leave and others start hopping around who are staying for the last month of the season or so, or the last few weeks of the season. That would be my question. So are you saying, Denise, that if 1, 2, 3, or pick a number of people came in and started living there the week of Pumpkin Patch and stayed there through the end of October, and were either getting charged rent flat out or having it deducted from their paycheck, that would be okay?
Yes, but it brings up a question. Does it specifically say that this is workforce housing somewhere, Julie? I cannot remember.
No, in her initial presentation last year, she had indicated that, and she has told me that it was housing, I believe, for her employees, for her business. I'm sure if there's a need to house other people, she would, but Paula does understand the rules on it, that short-term rentals are not allowed there, and she has expressed she has no intention whatsoever of doing that with that property. It's to fill the need that she needs housing for employees, and she knows other businesses need housing. So my understanding is that it has always been presented that way.
Okay, can we add the verbiage that states that it's workforce housing?
Sure.
I don't think that we should add the verbiage that says it's workforce housing.
Okay,
We need to bring long-term rental on, and to get down into the detail to say that it's workforce housing, that's a very debatable term. I don't know how you possibly would enforce that. And I would say that anything that brings on long-term rental units is a good thing and is in the spirit of what we want to do. It will likely become workforce housing, but I don't know how that is possibly a term that we could put into that development agreement and have it have any sort of meaning, unless Julie's got other thoughts on there. But I fundamentally think that any sort of long-term rental unit is a good thing, and is what I had envisioned here.
sure. Okay, valid point. Paula, would you like to say something?
Yes. Also, I would agree with Nate, because there's no reason, like, if I don't have an employee that needs that place, why would I just let it sit and not provide it to someone else's employee? I mean, the premise of this property is that I'm trying to do it for a cost that I can keep it one of the cheapest apartments in the village. So of course, the priority is going to go to our staff at the bowl, but if my staff has housing, especially once I get my cottages up and running, then I won't need to have my seasonal employees there. They can be out by me, and then these can be more year round. So.
Oh, I didn't, workforce housing to me was anybody. I didn't mean it be exclusive for the bowl. I just
Okay.
mentioned a general term that it would be people that are working in and around the community. So, but I understand Nate's point, and I can go along with that. It wasn't, we didn't have it originally in there, so I'm fine.
The other thing that I would say is that the word, like me, saying like, if Paul wants to sue the village, that's not it. When my lawyer looked at that, he was very concerned, because the dirt is not the issue here. The issue is that the village did not disclose a situation in a land sale that resulted in me getting sued. So that was the village's liability. They needed to disclose that there was someone else's property that I was buying. Okay, and when I asked him to come remove it promptly, and he said no, after my meeting with the village, there was nothing I could do on my own property to get rid of that soil. And if I did anything, I just said, you filed a TRO, he sued me. So I incurred costs because the village did not disclose what they legally had to. So saying it's, between me and Tim, really, it should have been between you, the village, and Tim. And I should never have been put in that situation. And that is the village's liability for not disclosing that. And
Well,
that is my concern.
Okay, we could debate the whole thing over again, which I don't want to do. But in response to your comments pertaining to that, some of us at the time did not know the lots had been switched from the original one being proposed. So therefore, we were unaware that the lot had changed, let alone that there was dirt on it. So,
I guess that makes it even harder for me because it was in a meeting that we discussed the lot number and it's,
I-
you know,
I'm
as
not
I
sure
went
this
over
is the
this
forum that
with
we
my
should be
lawyer-
retrying the case history
Well,
of
this-
what has transpired to
Okay.
get to this point.
So this would be my suggestion. This is what my lawyer suggested be in there. Is just that this section 11 shall not apply to or limit any claims that the developer may have against the village relative to Door County case number. List the case number. Specifically, the developer and village agree that any claims for cost of defense reimbursement from the village to developer shall survive this development agreement. And that is the language that we use.
Rob,
So it sounds to me like what Paula is interjecting is an opinion of her attorney here. That's what I'm
Correct.
hearing. Which is directly opposite or, not in line with the opinion of our attorney who previously weighed in on this situation before there was any legal proceedings going on. And our village attorney said and notified both Paula and her attorney and the other party, owner of the dirt, this is between the two of you, not having anything to do with the village of Sister Bay. So that is the position we as the village had moved forward on. And I understand and respect the fact that Paula feels it's important to interject a new opinion of her attorney. I don't believe that we need to move forward on considering anything other than the development agreement, as Denise noted it earlier, and that when we say we don't change them, amend them, add things to them, or take things out of them. So that would be my opinion, that we're either going to approve or not approve what's before us as it's put forth.
Nate,
I guess this applies to this in particular, but also in general. I get uncomfortable when we start having, in this case, it's not as black and white, but when we start hearing other people's legal opinions and we make a decision before we get an opinion from our attorney, I guess I would be comfortable if we said we'll pass this along to the board with a caveat that we'll seek legal counsel on that one item. Although I understand your point to say, Denise, that a development agreement's a development agreement's a development agreement. We're not going to make edits to it. But I would be okay with that. I would also be okay with it getting referred to the board with Randy's advice attached to it as well.
any other
that-
commission members have an opinion, want to share something?
Well, as much as I'd like to see that building, something done with that building, I don't feel that we should make amendments to our agreement in any way, especially since we don't even have an opinion from Randy yet. I think we leave well enough alone.
Okay.
I
Anyone
agree.
else?
I agree with that, Denise.
Okay.
That I don't think that there should be an amendment, a development agreement that the planning commission sets up. Needs to stand, it needs to be, everyone needs to be treated the same way. And from the background I'm hearing from Rob and you, it sounds like the attorney has already advised us on this. that it's not a village issue. It's between the developer and this other party and the dirt person. So,
And just to clarify, Patrice, it was more than just the attorney advised us. The attorney drafted a letter representing the position embraced by the board and sent it to both parties.
right,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Can I just interject that he did draft that before I was sued by the other party. So one thing Julie and I talked about, and I just want to go back to Nate's point, because if the board considered that I feel like would be the best option to let Randy weigh in on it currently, because things have changed, and then refer that on to the board with whatever your attorney decides.
I mean, I think we as a plan commission can recommend the development agreement to the board as it's currently written. Julie can certainly, in the meantime, get Randy's opinion and present it to the board when it goes to the board for adoption. And that can be the board's power and will to do what they deem appropriate at that level, but not at this level. Any more discussion? If there is none, then a motion to recommend to the village board as presented would be in order.
So moved.
Motion by Zashki,
Second,
second by Champeau. All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed?
Nay.
One opposed. Motion carried. Okay. Item 6C, Development Agreement Amendment Sidewalk at DC Medical Clinic at 2345 Canterbury Lane. Julie?
Sure. This is kind of a cleanup amendment is what I'm asking for on this one. But as you know, the DC Medical Building was approved about a year ago, a little over a year ago. One of the requirements on that site plan was they put in a sidewalk. And I don't think people realized at that time that that sidewalk was not even on their property. Also that there were utility poles in that location, which you'd walk down a sidewalk and hit a pole. I don't think, people really realize some of the logistics involved with that one. So we've talked to DC Medical and we said, you were still required to put in a sidewalk. So they said, well, what about if we, rather than put it in, because really we don't have the authority to require it, it's not even on their property. But they said they would still be willing to support a sidewalk by figuring out what this sidewalk would cost and then contributing that to a different sidewalk project. One we're actually talking about right now is on the other side of Highway 57. The other part of this was there was just very minor, some landscaping that spewed over their property and into the right of ways that we also required. So this amendment would not require that sidewalk on their property, but require them to give money towards a bigger sidewalk project. And then it would also require them to grade and seed those areas in the right of way, but not put landscaping in the right of way. We always want to keep the right of ways free and clear. Whether you have power poles or vehicles or snow maintenance, you don't want trees sitting there. So like I said, this amendment would be a cleanup one. I did talk with DC Medical. They are in support of these, this amendment. They have no issue with it. Like I said, they're willing to contribute to the value of the sidewalk. They actually had offered that before we had said anything to them, so.
Okay, a couple of questions I have. It states that Public Works got an estimate $21,000 seems pretty small for a sidewalk that's 420 feet long. Where'd we get a quote from?
So Dan, and I hate to have you quote me on this, but I think it is $10 a square foot is what we have estimated our sidewalks to be. Like he's doing some work at Waterfront Park and that comes out to $10. I think it's $10 a square foot. And so he had figured that cost on this sidewalk as well, that would be the cost for that sidewalk. I have not done the math myself. I just trusted his numbers.
But to your knowledge, Julie, was that a sidewalk of 420 feet in length?
He measured it and said it was 420 feet. So I don't have the lot dimensions in front of me, but I'll be honest with you, it makes sense when you're out there. It looks like it's about that long.
That's what the number is, because if you take that 420 times 5 feet, you get 2,100 square feet, and that would
Yep.
be the number.
Okay, so that you're basing it on 5 feet wide. And is that the plan for 57? Is to
Well-
only have a 5-foot wide sidewalk or trail or whatever it is that you want to call it?
It has not been engineered yet. We just got a bid to find out what it would cost to actually engineer that. I think offhand that Dan was thinking that one would be 6 feet wide.
Okay. And why would we settle for $21,000 when it hasn't been engineered and we don't know exact costs, instead of saying whatever 420 feet is going to, those costs come up once we get firm numbers, that we use that?
We could certainly do that. You know, they have not given us any money. These have just been discussions with them. You know, I think we risk the fact too that they could do nothing because it's not on their property. That is,
Well, they could have built it on their property. Nobody said that they had to show it outside of their property. I think that was an error on their planning if they showed it on property that they did not own when we asked for a sidewalk to be put in.
yeah, I wasn't here. I just know that the site plan was approved with it in the right of way. So, but whatever we want to do with it, you know, I can certainly bring back to them. We do, you know, we are hoping to get some answers on this soon. Like I would hope we could make a decision now because they do want to get that site graded so that they can open on time. So they do need some direction on that sidewalk.
And Julie, this is Brian Stevens. I'm happy to answer any questions directly, or I'll just sit and listen. It's up to you.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Brian,
Nate?
did you hear the statement that Denise had posed regarding, you know, instead of 21,000, just pay for 420 feet of sidewalk? Would that be something that you could entertain? Something you'd be willing to do?
So I guess what you're saying is if the sidewalk turns out to be wider than what was expected, or the estimate comes out to be more or something like that. I mean, I don't want to leave it open-ended. And again, as you said, the $21,000 number did come from your facilities folks, and we feel like that's a fair number. So I think you know, personally, I would definitely rather it be a finite $21,000 number.
Okay.
Nate,
Um,
and then Rob?
if there's not going to be a sidewalk on there, I think that we still need to ask the medical center to have a tie-in for pedestrian traffic somehow, whether that be across to the corner of Canterbury and 57, where there's a sidewalk on the other side of the road, or going across 57 and you know, doing what they need. I think that there needs to be a way for people to walk into there if there's not going to be a sidewalk in front of it.
Nate, there is a crosswalk planned at that initially. You know, like I said, it hasn't been designed, but Dan has been working with the engineer telling them, and they have recommended a crosswalk at that location.
Which at Canterbury and 57?
Over 57.
Okay, but I think that we need to make sure that the medical center has some way to bring pedestrians in there. I mean, like,
Yeah.
just go to the side of the road isn't gonna do much good, and it, you know, I don't know what your thoughts are on that for that, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, I know that crosswalk is planned donation, so we were planning to do both. You know, in terms of how that's designed, I don't know that I can speak to that, but at least this evening, but I can get you an answer on it.
Would it be unreasonable to say that there would be a connection to that crosswalk?
Again, I don't have the design in front of me. I don't know if y'all do in your packet and can see that. I'm not positive.
Okay, I guess that's what that's what I would want to make that change on this.
Because we did talk about having a sidewalk on the side of the road, on their property on Canterbury Lane. And I believe at that time, they said that they were doing the other sidewalk, and this was just not in their budget, but in the future, if the village wanted to put a sidewalk in and special assess them, that they could they'd be willing to do that. That's what they did in Sturgeon Bay, if I'm correct.
That's what I recall.
So
I also know, I had talked to Dan about sidewalks just in general in that area. And we don't have it in our CIP right now, but we talked about the fact that eventually Applewood and Canterbury, that we have to do improvements there. The way they're designed right now, you wouldn't want to put a sidewalk along them because we don't have any curb and gutter. So eventually we want to redo those roads, put curb and gutter and put sidewalks. And yeah, assess the property owners for them, right? At the current time, you wouldn't want to put it there because there is no curb and gutter. So it's almost like it just kind of goes to a ground down lawn that meets a road. But certainly the fact that, Brian has said that when the time comes, they would be willing to pay for that if it's assessed. But that still doesn't address that crosswalk access issue that we were talking about. I think we could maybe make that as a condition. I just don't know what that would look like myself. We could leave it up to Public Works and their engineer to come up with something.
My goal is to have it so you can walk into the medical center without having to walk down a road, which is actually very challenging to do to a lot of places in this village.
Well, the plan never provided for that. When you look at that sidewalk on that plan, it never did get you into the doors of the clinic or even into their parking lot.
But if they're asking for this change, I guess I feel pretty strongly on this one. That was an oversight by myself in the past. So I don't think it's an unreasonable thing to look for.
Well, and just
Asking for a change, I don't think it's unreasonable for us to ask for that and to give them flexibility on how they want to do it. Let's not set it in stone. They have to do it exactly this way.
Yeah, and just to be clear, we had talked to them and said, look, this sidewalk, we said, we've got a problem here. The sidewalk's not going to work. There's poles in the middle of the sidewalk. And then when we took a closer look, we're like, it's not on the property. It goes to a spot where it sharply drops off. And they said, yeah, they wanted to work with us on it, which we were grateful for, I guess. However you want to move forward with it, I guess from a staff's perspective, and I think Dan would agree, we would rather see some suggestions we could put in a development agreement to keep it moving so that they can get into that clinic by their scheduled time.
let's not make another car-only access building that we have a lot of people that want to go to. Sure, most people will go in there via car, but let's not make that the only way. And let's give them flexibility and give them some time to do it. My thoughts.
So Nate, would you be satisfied that at the intersection of Canterbury and the highway, and wherever that crosswalk would be, which is probably going to be a fairly dangerous crosswalk, if you ask me, because you're going to have people going up the hill, taking a left and ramping up speed. That crosswalk is going to be dangerous, no matter what, whether there's a sidewalk there or not, in my opinion. So you would like that crosswalk to link up to that corner, and would you be satisfied if the sidewalk went into, just went to the driveway?
I mean, you're still dumping people right into, I mean, what's making this dangerous, just to state the obvious, is the cars. And people are going to be there. If we put a crosswalk there, you might have a few more people go there, but a crosswalk is going to be safer than no crosswalk.
Correct.
So it's an improvement to do that, even if it's a dangerous section there. And if you have people dump into a parking lot, you need to have some sort of delineation. I mean, I look at it and say, okay, figure out once this path goes across, let's have them cut straight across 57, because there's going to need to be a crosswalk there. People need to get across 57, and have it be a relatively short shot right into the front of the building, potentially. I mean, that doesn't need to be very long at all. I mean, how exactly it happens, I'm not so concerned with, but have the ability to walk into that clinic. That is really important to me, and I think is really important for the future of the village and for planning.
Okay.
So I think if you would do something like that, it would have to be, you have the crosswalk and then they access onto the medical center lot from Canterbury. Because again, we can't force them to put a sidewalk through a state highway right of way without the right of way state's permission.
I'm saying let's leave it up to them and just say, this is what our goal is. Let's be as general as we can and give them the room to figure that out.
You know, this, we did discuss we discussed the specter of this crosswalk when this was originally presented back in time. For those of you who may recall, I'm not sure anyone does, I'm not hearing it right now, but the point I made then, which I believe is still valid, is that if we're going to start talking about pedestrian safety and facilitating pedestrian access, you have to consider both from a convenience standpoint, in that location, where would those pedestrians be coming from? And in most instances, they would be coming from the housing developments across the street or from the daycare center. And you would have, which is one of the grand benefits of a medical center like this going in, whether it's parents picking up, a child at daycare, whether it's somebody from daycare, accompanying children over there, many people who live in the areas around there, walking over there. How does that become safe crossing 57 in a crosswalk atmosphere like that, unless you have a regimented crosswalk and a traffic light? And
raised crosswalk, I mean, that does a tremendous job of slowing people down.
Okay, so that, now the other thing that, is part of this, as far as making if we're going to talk about a crosswalk and making an effectively safe crosswalk, wherever it would be, okay? If somebody is going to say, and you know what, we don't need a traffic light for a crosswalk there in that position, then it would seem we would certainly need those signs that every other village puts up in their crosswalks to alert people to, hey, there's pedestrians. But if people might recall, the only person who ever supported in the last few years the issue of those signs being in Sister Bay, when they're in every other community in Northern Door County, but not Sister Bay, I'm the only one who voiced support for, why don't we have them too? So, you know, to put across, you know, I'm not down on the idea of a crosswalk, but, you know, this is a unique situation. And quite frankly, one could make a case with logic that it will be safer for somebody to go there in a vehicle than to go there walking, unless we really did something to make it safe for a pedestrian.
I'm going to say something and then Nate can have the floor.
Okay, and I just have one other point to make, or question, which is going back to Denise's point about, you know, just stating in here, why didn't we consider stating in here, you know, for the length of the sidewalk, whatever the cost would wind up becoming. Julie, do we have any remembrance or knowledge of when Dan said 21,000 would get this done? Was that in the scope of, in a normal improvement process, he would be able to bid this out quick enough so that when it actually does get done, he felt some level of assurity that it wouldn't cost more?
He did, you know, this is a project that we're actually hoping to get some grants on, and if we can get approval to move it forward rather quickly. Like I said, we've got a lot of development that has occurred out there, and we don't have a safe way to get them into town. So it is a priority. It is in the CIP, I think, for next year. But if we can find the funding, it is something we'd like to move up and take advantage of those cost estimates.
Okay, thank you.
So my question is, do we know the DOT will allow us to put a crosswalk there?
When Dan talked to the engineer felt that we could have a crosswalk there. There was one other spot, and I don't remember where, but I thought Dan said there would be 2 crosswalks is what was recommended.
Okay. Nate?
So, Rob, something you said, Rob, which is very true, but there's a caveat to it. You said you are safer to get in a vehicle than you are to walk there. Now, the real issue with that is the more people that take vehicles, the less safe it is to walk. The more people that walk, it's not any less safe for people to take vehicles. So I'm not disagreeing with you, Rob, but I'm saying that's an unintended consequence if you're making it even more dangerous.
I agree with everything you said, Nate, but my point is, you know, when this first came up, and, you know, perhaps because I was one of the few people who in recent times had daughters at that daycare center throughout their young growing up area, because I happen to know quite a few people who live in that surrounding area and know who, you know, to make it safe for people to get across 57 there, I'm all for encouraging pedestrian traffic there and getting people to walk there. But, you know, I don't know how that happens without a light to stop traffic with the type of push button device a pedestrian could activate to get the light to change, or else the signs highlighting the crosswalk that, for whatever reasons, I respect everyone's opinion, but everybody but me on various commissions said we don't want those warning signs like every other village has in our crosswalks. To me, an unmarked crosswalk in that area during tourist season in particular, that's something I would like to see not happen. I'd like to see it be, you know, a really safe, controlled crosswalk as best we could make it.
Rob, we were talking about those signs at parks in the downtown area where the road is narrow. And even the fire chiefs asked us not to put them down there. The highway is different, and we can certainly have a conversation with the fire chief and at parks. If this crosswalk goes in and if there's another one planned also, if it would be best to utilize those signs that there's a crosswalk there. Very different than downtown.
Okay, well, that's good news.
Anyone else?
Denise, can I ask a question? This is Brian.
Yes, Brian.
I'm just curious. I mean, the way that Julie kind of laid out this scenario tonight in her memo, obviously keeps us moving forward. If we have to go back and look at, ask our engineers to figure out what a pedestrian access from the highway. I mean, help me understand, could any of these discussions delay the opening of our clinic, which is slated for March 27th?
I don't think so, in my opinion.
I would be looking for a commitment to do this. I mean, like really where this comes, I feel like this needs to happen is after this 57 path happens. I'm just looking for a commitment to it moving forward. Let's not stop this from happening, but just look for a commitment from the medical center to do that. I mean, and I don't think it's something that you guys would be opposed to. I understand, Brian, you can't say that. And for all that I beat you up, Brian, I really do support you and I really like your project and it's fantastic. I'm just, Denise and I help you make the best project possible in Sister Bay. But, I don't want to see this slow this down. Let's just look long-term to have a good solution.
Yeah, no, we certainly appreciate that. And and at the same time, I mean, I can sit here and tell you, yeah, we want to work with you. Absolutely. I just can't sit here and say, we want to work with you and let's leave it open-ended on how much that's going to cost, And so that's why I appreciate the way, that it was written in the memo that was presented to you, where it is a $21,000 cost.
Can I propose something, Denise?
I was going to ask you, after everything that you've heard, how would you summarize it and what would your suggestion be?
So let's keep in mind that they can't occupy that building until we can determine compliance with that development agreement, right? So everything in that development agreement has to be satisfied before they can go in there, which is one of the problems. With the amendment, though, we could say that they need, in addition to what's there, they need to work with the village on a crosswalk at the intersection of Canterbury Lane and Highway 57 to ensure direct access to the medical center. And said direct access shall be provided within 6 months of the installation of the crosswalk.
I like it. Brian, what do you think?
The only suggestion I would make is within 6 months of the installation of the walking trail, just because, to have a crosswalk that goes nowhere doesn't make any sense, I don't think.
Well, is 6 months, as much as I want to see this happen, I mean, is 6 months the appropriate timeline on there? Because let's just say they get it done in October, that could happen. And that means you have to have it going by April. That depending on the year, that may or may not be viable.
Or they get the sidewalk in, but not the crosswalk. They might get that straight part in, but not the crosswalks put in time. Because they're dealing with the DOT, it delays it. So
what if we say both and then we leave it at 6 months? Because the village isn't going to magically have this appear. I mean, like, we're not going to go to bed one night and wake up and have a trail and a crosswalk one day. We're going to know about it ahead of time. There's going to be months, and there's the possibility the medical center could work with us. So maybe we make both of those contingent on it, and then give them 6 months from that completion, and then realistically, we just need to keep the medical center appraised of the progress on those two items. What do you think of that, Brian?
That sounds good to me. Like I say, we definitely want to work with you on it.
Okay, I'm going to let Julie then rewrite what she wrote. And while she's doing that, There are a bunch of changes I would like to make on the amendment to the development agreement.
Okay,
So on page 77, the third whereas, second sentence, placement of a sidewalk on the opposite side of, we need to add the highway. The next whereas, to ensure no obstructions are placed within road rights of way, the developer has agreed to amend their, not his landscaping, and not design, but replace that with plan. And then next sentence, starting with right of way of any public road, and instead of rather, it should be instead locate the vegetation entirely on their, not his property. And any disturbed areas within the road right of ways shall, not to, shall be graded and seeded. Rather, and insert than landscaped in their, not his original landscaping plan. So every place that there's a his, there's now going to be a there.
Denise, by any chance, do you have that red pen somewhere that you could forward me?
Yes, I can take a picture of it on my phone and text it to you.
Thank you.
And then also in number 2, it's the same thing under landscaping. There's 2 his that should be there.
Okay.
And then I just have a general question under number 5. This agreement shall be governed by and construed in accordance with the laws of the state of Wisconsin, without regard to conflict of law principles. What does that mean, without regard to conflict of law principles?
Well, so this is the template that you use for amendments, and what I believe that is saying is if there are principles that are conflicting with each other, we don't care. You can argue one way or the other. This agreement is still going to take precedence and is what's going to govern this project.
Okay, all right. Okay, so were you able to?
Can I ask one
Right.
question on those changes, Denise, please?
Sure.
They all make sense to me, with the exception of on the third whereas. Why would we not want the same clarification where if we start out by saying the development agreement required the installation of a 420-foot long sidewalk along Highway 57, would it not, for clarification's sake, be better if the next whereas said, in lieu of the sidewalk, the developer is offered to pay $21,000 to the village for the placement of a 420-foot long sidewalk on the opposite side of Highway 57? Or at least if you feel strongly enough that it shouldn't say Highway 57 a second time and should say the highway, I would think we would at least want to clarify that we're still talking about a 420-foot sidewalk. It just happens to be on the other side of the street.
Well, by the time this gets done, $21,000 may not cover 420 feet.
Well, that's part of where I'm coming from, is if by the time it gets done, do we want, is it going to be however long the sidewalk is? And I'm not, taking exception to that, but are what we're saying is based on when this gets done, the sidewalk will be as long as it can be for $21,000. Sounds like that's what we're saying then.
Well, I also think because I understand what you're saying, but this is going to be a project that runs couple thousand or more feet, thousands of feet. So it's going to be put in the pot of money.
Okay, All right, just a question. Thank you.
Julie, would you like, if you're ready, would you like to read us the verbiage that would be inserted here?
Sure, I'm kind of winging it, but let's go. The developer shall work with the village engineer to ensure a crosswalk is located at the intersection of Canterbury and Highway 57. Said crosswalk to provide direct access to the medical center. Period. The crosswalk shall be installed within 6 months of installation of the sidewalk. I think that's what we wanted, right?
Yeah, 6 months of the sidewalk on this
West side of
south side
57.
of 57.
Okay,
As Brian, are you okay with that?
Yes, I think that sounds reasonable.
I mean, give or take some tweaking.
No, I think the way it was stated sounds reasonable.
Okay. Okay. Are there any other comments or questions? Then, and this amendment also has to go to the village board, so this would be a recommendation up to the board.
that is correct.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve as amended and discussed this evening?
I so move.
Motion by Champeau,
Second,
second by Bell. All those in favor respond with an aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Let me just take a picture of this while I have it on my screen to send to Julie.
this might be Brian's last plan commission meeting. We'll miss you, Brian, if you don't make it back.
Oh, thanks. It's been a process, but we're really excited to have that building open.
We're excited to have you.
Okay, item 6D, final plan review, repave parking lot at the Country Walk Shops and Piggly Wiggly, 10576 Country Walk Drive. Julie?
Okay, at the January, so at the Country Walk Shops have proposed to repave the parking and driving lanes out near the Piggly Wiggly. The biggest part of the project, of course, is what is viewed as the grocery store parking lot, I think is how we view it. But when we reviewed it, we did have some questions and some suggestions, and they have addressed all those concerns. One was we had requested that they install a sidewalk from the main area of the parking lot north to the multi-use trail on the south side of State Highway 42. So in other words, a sidewalk connecting the grocery store to the trail along the highway. They have agreed to do that. So you'll note on the plan, you now see a 5-foot wide sidewalk, and it enters the parking lot kind of at an angle for safety to keep people away from the street light that's there, to make sure that they're more visible. We didn't ask for 5 feet, but they did 5 feet, and we were glad they did because, as you know, we've been discussing 5-foot sidewalks. So that was really good to see that on the plans. We did request that bike racks be closer to the store and away from the driveway. They looked at it, and due to the design of the parking lot, what they did was the engineer felt the safest place for those bike racks was kind of off to the side under the trees where you might be able to sit or rest. And they actually are putting a path or a little sidewalk kind of connecting it to the road. So the bikes could go from the road to that path, to the bike rack, which is nice and shaded. And then of course, walk down the aisle to the grocery store. There was some concern that last plan that it wasn't close enough to the store. I did measure it. This is 101 feet to the grocery store. So they are, I think, pretty close to the grocery store. Improved pedestrian safety as they cross the parking lot. They angled that new sidewalk to kind of dump into an aisle. So you just walk down the aisle, which is what you do now in a store, right? You get out of your car, you walk down the aisle to the store. So they did make sure that that aligned up to make sure that pedestrian safety was taken into account. There really wasn't much more they could do with that. They did look at other designs from, like, when I was talking to the engineer, from like malls, and that's what they do. They have the pedestrian go down the parking aisle, so it's pretty common. And then we had wanted to review a draft development agreement, and I did look in the code, and development agreements are not required for paving. They're required for new construction other than homes, which this project isn't. For all projects that require a conditional use permit, this one does not. And commercial projects in existing buildings involving a change of use or occupancy where the building is non-conforming. So no development agreement required on this one. So you don't see a draft agreement with this proposal right now. And that's all I have for you.
Nate, are you satisfied?
No,
Okay,
that just doesn't make any sense about the bike stalls, like to say that you want them to, I don't know why you wouldn't put them as close as possible. So if the goal of parking is to get people near your store. So if you could take the space for one car and potentially get up to 15 people there, that would be desirable to have them closer to your store, so you have to go across less of the parking lot. And I also, to look at a mall as a place for inspiration for pedestrian management is a little bit crazy, because malls are incredibly pedestrian unfriendly. They are seas of asphalt that are very inaccessible to pedestrians. I think that one little tweak on that sidewalk would, if they just had to go straight across the driveway, it looks like they could go across the front of that. I mean, I presume is that, I'm not sure if that is trees there or if that is going to be like some sort of walkway in front of the stalls that are pointed toward the road. But you could at least have them so they're not walking where people are backing in and out of the stalls. That does not jive with me as being safe.
Nate, you kind of lost me there. You were talking about the biking and then the pedestrian. Let's start with the biking. So you see where they have the bike racks there.
Yes.
They have them by an island. They have them away from the driveway, because that was one of the requirements that we had asked for, was to get it away from the driveway. So they get it away from the driveway. They put it in an island. They put it in a location where they can put a sidewalk out to or a path out to the road. Where do you think that should be located on that plan?
5 stalls further to the, thinking about the direction here, that's going to be to the
The
east.
left?
To the left, yes.
Well, that's the opposite of what the Plan Commission asked last time. The Plan Commission asked them to get it away from the driveway. And the other thing is, if they did that, your path into those bikes would be interfering with a driveway versus having it in a safer spot where you're not competing with a driveway to get in by the bike racks.
You're going to put an ingress egress path between 2 driveways. That, I mean, like that isn't particularly safe either. I mean, if I'm going there, I'm coming in through the driveway. I mean, I do go into that parking lot regularly on my bike, and I absolutely will come in through the driveway, because coming through something like that is, you're going to be impacted by both of those, traffic coming in out of both of those. And I guess are these islands here? Are these concrete islands that I'm seeing there that are checkered?
No, those are the landscape islands that we require.
So you're going to have a separation between the driveway and that first stall. There's not like you're not going to be able to drive your car and continue turning and go right into that first stall. There will be like a curb there of some sort.
Yeah,
So I don't understand how I don't recall asking for them to be away from the driveway. I mean, that's separated from the driveway, which would seem reasonable. But I mean, I guess what I would just say that I would like to see it further to the left, 5 spaces to the left.
Can I ask, and I'm going to do devil's advocate here. So we are, median age is 64.5 years of age. We are a high senior population. Why would we not want to keep our seniors closer to the door than the bicyclists,
If somebody's fit enough to ride a bicycle to the pig and the pig is willing to expand bike capability, like apparently they are, I think anyone that can ride a bike to the pig can walk 100 feet to get into the store.
I disagree with that, Rob, and I think that's exactly what they've got right now. They've got it thrown in the middle of the parking lot.
Okay, I think, this came up last meeting, and I think we need to be fair and understanding of the full situation, okay? The bike racks, where they have existed, were not just thrown there, okay? The bike racks were there because, yes, they're seasonal employees and their J1 employees needed places to put their bikes. But if you look logically at this now project coming forward or redesigning this parking lot, logic says the first foot forward from Piggly Wiggly to say, hey, we can tweak this a little so it's more safe than what it's been. Granted, we know there's been no accidents with pedestrians. There's been no accidents with bikers there. Any few vehicle accidents that have been low mileage, bumper to bumper, haven't even made the paper, that were, nothing significant, but they said, you know what, we just want to control this in and out traffic during high season. So that's why those bike racks were on there. And then we get a plan presented to us before about, things they'd like to do to beautify the area a bit with planters and whatnot when they want to resurface the parking lot. And now we've come to this push for a development agreement for a parking lot, even though we never had one. Now staff has confirmed that a development agreement doesn't apply, yet they've still come forward apparently and said, okay, here's some other things we'll do. And, this is the lifeblood, one of the lifebloods of our community.
Yes,
People year round who reside here, benefit so greatly from having the pig there. Okay. I don't know why we wouldn't just be satisfied and grateful that some comments were made. They've come with more than what they originally presented, even though there's no development agreement required. In my opinion, we should be, as a community, grateful for what they're offering here in this report. And if indeed that's the summary of what they're willing to do, I'm in favor of motioning that we approve it as it's presented tonight.
so I'd like to finish. So Julie, you talked about the parking spot and you're devil's advocate, and believe me, Julie, you do a fantastic job of that. So the other comment I had is the sidewalk. If that were to go straight across the driveway, I don't understand how angling it is going to improve that. If you're going across, you're going to go through this traffic, there's gonna be cars going through there. You're going to have the same amount of traffic if you go through that first row, or if you go across it, you're still going to have the traffic coming in and out off that road. And it would actually be less sidewalk for them if they just went straight across at a 90-degree angle from that driveway.
Okay, so the sidewalk, when you see, first of all, they're taking the sidewalk and they're trying to put it so it lines up as close as they can with the center of that aisle, right? So you're not crossing and hitting a curb or hitting the back of the cars.
But you'd have
But
there's a walkway that'll be on the other side of those stalls, right? I mean, there's a place where you could walk between the stalls and the road, correct? Or is that just a landscape feature?
That's a landscape
Okay,
feature.
that's my misunderstanding of that then.
Yeah.
That would not be viable.
Yeah, and then the other thing is you can see like the stop sign and the light and stuff at the access point. We don't want to have a pedestrian. So many times a pedestrian will kind of hang out there, but it also
Sure.
makes them so they're not visible.
Well, I mean, like if that is a landscape feature, that's just me misreading that. That's not a viable suggestion.
And I did, just for clarification, I did just check the minutes, and it was Dave Schmitz who brought up getting the bike racks away from the driveway, and then it says that the plan commission concurred. He talked about moving them closer to the store, but getting them away from driveways. That's where that came from, just for clarification.
Okay. I guess what I would say, Rob, is I know this sounds a little bit impassioned, but I would tell you that all of our society is focused on cars and is car centric, and we are going to have cars and we need cars up here. It's something we have, and there needs to be there needs to be a different viewpoint. And sometimes I get a little passionate about it, and that is absolutely true. But I do also acknowledge that they did make some changes on here. I kind of wish that path was bigger, but a sidewalk connecting to the multi-use path is a heck of an improvement versus walking down that very dangerous road. So sometimes it's there to the possible.
And we are very happy that you are impassioned, Nate, because you have brought all of us along on the path that you're driving down, riding down.
Driving sometimes more than I'd like to admit, Denise.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm. You have enlightened for me for sure, and I'm sure others. Is there any other commentary from anyone else on the commission? Rob, then, is that your motion to approve as presented?
Well, I said I would consider such a motion. My question, my question for Julie ahead of time is, if we've clarified a development agreement isn't required, do we really, is there a need for us to motion this into existence? I'm
Yes.
just asking the
Sure.
question because if,
Yep.
or
So
is it consensus, or is it thank you, we'll look forward to seeing it? I'm trying to gauge, why something formal would be required.
Sure.
Which,
So with this, so the code does require this project to have site plan review, and then a zoning permit gets issued. So we would want to make a motion, if you're in support of it, to approve the site plan review based on the plans presented this evening, the revised plans presented this evening.
and we have confirmation that Piggly Wiggly is fine with this. You guys have worked that out ahead of time there.
Yes, on this plan, the engineer and I have had a few emails back and forth on it, and the owner has been included on some of those emails, and I have talked to at least one person who's on the board of the Country Walk Shop. So I think everybody's kind of on board with site plan review and the zoning permit.
Okay.
So Julie, you want the motion to state also that you're authorized to issue a zoning permit, right?
Well, the code says that they need site plan review approved before I can issue a zoning permit, so it's kind of a
Okay.
given.
Okay,
So,
Okay, well, considering that we've got confirmation from staff that all the parties involved are okay with this, I will motion that we approve the final site plan review as presented this evening.
Motion by Zashki. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Second by Champeau. All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carried. Item 6E, final plan review for new boat dealership facility Beacon Marine on South Bay Shore Drive. Julie?
okay, this is another one that came to you last year. Well, more than a year ago, it was May of 2021. We had reviewed it and had asked them to make some changes. Beacon Marine presented, their engineer had presented some changes shortly after I started, and it didn't meet setbacks. We had to revise some other things. They finally decided that they weren't going to have outdoor display there, which meant they could make the parking and everything more compliant and make everything fit better. So this plan is a little different than what you saw. It eliminates that outdoor area. When I reviewed it, it has, you know, again, we went back and forth on different plans until it met code. There's only 3 comments that I would have on this project. And that is, I wasn't quite sure if the siding is what we allowed. We don't allow metal siding. They have what is called a architectural semi-concealed fastener metal panel. So I was looking for guidance from the Plan Commission. Is this something that we would accept, or have we accepted in the past? So we'd want some direction on that one. Just alert you, they know that the signage does not meet code, so ignore that on the plans in front of you. It was for illustrative purposes only, and to kind of show what lighting would look like if they had signs, things of that nature. But the signage is not part of this application at this time. And then my third thing is the Wisconsin Department of Transportation trail does run across this lot for public safety purposes. Should we be imposing something to protect the pedestrians? I thought that at a minimum, there should be a sign erected at the driveway cautioning customers to yield to the pedestrians and cyclists on the trail. Those were the only 3 concerns I had. Other than that, it meets code. I have no concerns other than those three statements.
Did
I
they
have
bring in samples of the siding into the office?
He didn't bring in samples, but they did, he sent pictures, and then he sent a picture of a building that had it on.
Okay, that's not good enough. I think if they want us to make a determination whether we're going to allow metal siding, which is prohibited in the code currently, that we would need a sample of it, and Plan Commission members would have to go up and look at it and determine that at our next meeting. The couple questions that I have are on page 89. And is all that gray area on this particular, is that all asphalt?
Yes.
Why is it all asphalt if they only have 15 parking spaces?
I think it was, my guess is you pull in with a boat, you need a large turning area, or you pull out with a boat, you need a large turning area. I did see somebody from Beacon Marine was on the call. They could answer that for us too.
Okay, we can get back to that. Going back to page 88, which is the landscaping plan. I'm not willing, depending upon where our conversation goes tonight, I could not approve the landscaping plan because I cannot blow it up large enough to read it. So I would either need to go into the office and look at a hard copy there, or a larger one needs to be scanned in. On the landscaping plan, it shows 13 parking spaces, and then on page 89, it shows 15. So I'm wondering which is correct.
On the landscaping plan, I think it's not meant to show the parking stalls. I think it's just showing parking in this area. You can see the diagram kind of, or the drawing kind of, I'll say, fades away or drops off. So I don't think they were trying to show the number of parking stalls on there.
So it is 15 spaces.
Yeah, and I did verify the number of employees to make sure we had enough parking in there. I can get you a full scale, we can print a full scale landscaping plan and get that to Denise or anybody else that wants it.
Okay. The one comment that I was able to see from the color rendering, if they have all of this asphalt, and I think from what I can tell, all the trees or larger shrubbery or trees that they're going to plant is great, but what they have around the building is simply not enough. And my other question would be, is they have a future addition. And what is the square footage of that? And what kind of parking criteria? How many more parking spaces would they need for that future addition? And would they be able to have enough?
I can ask them about that. They do have more parking than they need right now.
So how
Um,
many do they need according to your calculation?
Oh. Bear with me, because that's a while ago that we talked about that. I know that there, I'd have to keep looking through this year. I know that there are, as far as employees go, there's only 3 employees. There's 1 receptionist and 2 associates.
Okay,
Um. So the rest is for customers.
so do we have, I'm looking right now. I don't remember that we have something for a boat dealership specifically.
You
So
don't,
what criteria did you use? Just retail?
I think I looked at car dealership. Was that in there? I do
Motor
know
vehicle
too.
sales.
Let me just go back a second here. There was the plan commission earlier when they looked at it the first time. When the plan commission looked at it the first time, they recognized that there was not a standard on it. And let me see what the minutes say here. The village zoning code does not specifically reference boat sales parking, but Bernhoff believes parking will be sufficient.
Yeah, that means nothing to me.
There will be there will be 1 space near the front. I would have to go back through this, and Denise, but I think I was looking at automobile sales, if I remember right.
Yeah, page 75 is motor vehicle sales establishments. 2
Yep,
customer parking spaces per salesperson plus 1 space per employee for the work shift with the largest number of employees.
And that's why I had asked him his number of sales
Okay.
associates too.
Okay. As long as that gets into the minutes that we know what criteria we were using to approve the parking.
Sure.
On page 97, I understand the west and the south elevation have some pretty small windows. And I think either they need to be larger, and I cannot see when I blow it up what the length of those walls are, because if they're over, I can't remember how many feet, is it 50? Then they have to do something different to break up the monotony of the wall.
I'll have to check on that. Not that I doubt that, Denise. I just that offhand, I thought that was on the wall that faced the access.
I'm pretty sure that's all of the walls.
We can check into that. I mean, we'll want to check into it.
Okay.
And I mean, I think it could be windows or any other architectural feature could break it up. I know over the years, there's been a couple different things that have relatively simple things that have been done to break that.
And I know Marge isn't here tonight. Rob and Nate, maybe you can help me. I think I like the old plan better, but I can't remember. Did that also have a flat roof?
No, the old plan had a gabled roof and the tower in stone and was about $800,000 more than I could afford. So, and the builder wasn't very forthcoming about the pricing, and it was just not a good situation. So, yeah, we went with, we don't have a flat roof now, but we're doing something similar to what I built on Old Stage Road for our service center. But of course, this will look a little bit more pleasing because it'll be facing the tourist trade, so to speak. Right now, our service center on Old Stage is a great building, but it's not set up to be super beautiful from a retail standpoint. But it's a sloping roof. And the old plan was using a batten board siding, which is, I wouldn't say considerably more money, but when you start building it out of wood, yeah, the building looks a bit more pleasing from a warmth standpoint, but it's more expensive and requires a lot more maintenance. And back in the day when I bought the lot and I came to the committee, it was, where do you want us? I just want a place. And I was tempted to be downtown, but I knew that wasn't going to work. And Bob and the planning committee at that point pointed me towards this lot as a quote unquote big box location if we were ever going to have one. So that's why we chose this. And then we went through all that planning commission work before as far as setbacks and lot lines and such. So I'd love to build something that looked straight out of my grandfather's home in Norway, but it's too expensive. So what we're trying to do is to get something that fits the use of it, is designed well enough to be impressive, not modern, but not traditional, kind of in between. It's all these different variables that I'm trying to balance to make it affordable, but yet still attractive and fitting into the look and feel of Sister Bay, if there is one. Certainly at that stretch between Lampert's and Christ's, I mean, there is no feel, but there's nothing wrong with establishing a higher standard.
Is this metal siding going to be similar to what's out on Old Stage?
Well, the building, I mean, when I say that, you guys will drive by and go, what? That building has no windows. Well, right, but it's the fact that it's a steel building with a real modern interior and with a sloped roof to shed snow and rain and low maintenance exterior. Yes, Nate, that's what I'm saying.
One thing I know we're not supposed to mention right now, but I go by that on Old Stage at night all the time, and I see that sign. And I I've always wondered for the last several years, will Jim try and put an internally illuminated sign on there? And I know that we're not supposed to look at it, but I saw those are all
You
light
can
cast
ask
on there.
you can ask any question you want. I figure when you're biking along Old Stage, you probably have 2.3 seconds to see that.
Yeah.
You know, so I wouldn't want to distract you and have you be the first guy to hit a deer on a bike.
You know, that fits Liberty Grove's feel very well, though. That's fine out there.
So I don't know if anybody can see this. I'm going to try and share it. That was the original design.
Thank you.
That's
helpful.
I know it's a terrible, you can't really see it, but.
No,
that's
you
what I got.
can, you can. So are there, I know it says final review, but I feel that there's so much that has changed that this is more of a preliminary review. I'm sorry
Okay.
to say. Because we looked at it and it's very, very different. Those are my questions and concerns. One thing though, Julie, that you mentioned that you can answer, you talked about some kind of signage, you know, where the driveway will enter into the business. And it wouldn't, are you talking about something different than the signage that we currently have?
I'm talking about like, as you're leaving their parking lot, there would just be a sign that says caution pedestrians and bicyclists or something to that effect. Just so that the people pulling out know they have to look for that, because you got to remember, you're sometimes pulling not only usually a truck, this isn't a car if you're pulling a boat, and a trailer. So, you know, you got to make sure it's clear, because otherwise a pedestrian could come down there and hit something, or you could hit them. So it's just a precaution.
I think,
Okay. I would
problem-
want to see it consistent though at all of the driveways. There is some signage on there now. I can't remember. Maybe Nate can tell me what they say. Do you remember, Nate?
I don't. I mean,
Okay.
it's been a while. I mean, that's a snowmobile trail right now. It's been a few months.
Right.
One thing that
Nate, I'll
would-
say that my preference would be to stripe the driveway and put a stop sign, so that when you're pulling out, you stop. And then you get to the highway 20 feet later and you stop again. That's the best way to do it. If you have
one thing that's in other places on that trail that it sounds like you'd be agreeable to is just having it so it's at least stripe it, or just have it be so it's a no parking area. I mean, I know they do that at the Carroll House.
Well, we wouldn't have parking there, but I mean, the others driveways have no marks, but that doesn't mean that's the standard. You know, in DuPage County in Illinois, where we have the Prairie Path, you mark it heavily because you want to promote the path. You want to promote the biking and the walking. So I think I would just put a stop sign on my driveway.
Jim, I think, you know, from my perspective, I think that's a great idea that somebody's willing to do that. I mean, normally we don't get that offer, so I guess that's why I didn't throw it out there. We do get a lot of complaints about the other trail, especially the Carroll House is a big one, because people are always parking over that lane because they don't realize that it's the bike trail there. So I'd be interested in your thoughts on that, but I do think that we'd be able to preserve it better and keep it open, free of vehicles if it is striped and the stop sign is right before it.
Yeah, I mean, people aren't going to park right in front of us. Well, most people aren't going to park right in front of a stop sign. I mean, and the Carroll House makes some sort of modest attempt to put like the yellow /P there for no parking, and people obey it sometimes they don't.
Well, my point is simply that, okay, I don't live in Sister Bay. I live in Liberty Grove, most of the time at least. But I own this lot, and I care as much about Sister Bay and how things look and feel as anyone who lives there, because I've been coming up here forever and my brother lives here too. So I don't mind at all if you guys ask me to do things that I miss that'll make it better. Like, you know, Julie, you're concerned about the path, or Denise, you know, if you say, wow, we should put some more cedar trees or something. I want this to look beautiful. I don't want it to be a minimal, wow, I just got it through approval kind of a thing. Our customers in Door County, we're very blessed to have loyal, some well-to-do, some not well-to-do, but all of them take some pride in the company that takes care of their leisure time activity. And just like on Old Stage Road in Sister Bay, when I built the service center, man, I spent a lot of money on landscaping, and everybody who comes in here in the summer is like, wow, it's so beautiful. And because I chose Door Landscaping because I wanted native plants that don't need watering all the time, because that's Door County. So I'm not trying to sound holier than thou. I'm just very open to whatever you guys think, and don't call it nitpicky. Let's make this work. I just would like to get it built before September. But, that said, I mean, you guys have to do what you have to do.
Well, it sounds like we've got quite a few updates to make for staff to work on now, right, Denise?
So, well, we haven't heard from everybody, but so yes, I think we should get a sample of the siding. I think Julie can let us know when it's in the office, and we can go look at it. If it doesn't look like metal siding, that's going to be a judgment call. I don't know how we approve it if it's prohibited. I'm just going to say that.
So that would be a question that I would have. I'm not interested in trying to push the envelope. If it says metal siding's not permissible. I mean, metal siding's metal siding, doesn't matter what it looks like. So if it's not permissible, I don't want to waste your guys' time. And honestly, I want to take the moral high ground, right? I want to be able to pound the gavel and say, guys, I've done everything you've wanted. Why are you delaying this? I don't want to say, wow, here I am pushing the envelope on yet another, notion that you guys may or may not buy into, and then I lose another month. And I think this stuff should have been taken care of already, but I don't want to lose another month. I mean, I was hoping that we were going to get this thing wrapped up. Not that everything is set. Julie and I had talked about, there's still some landscaping stuff. The signage, I said, forget that. We can, we don't even need it. It's not like anyone needs to be told what's going to be there. And from a landscaping standpoint, I have no idea, as good as renderings can be, you don't ever know until the building's up or going up. And then you say, wow, we really need to add more flowers or more trees, or no one could have known that looked a little bit odd next to Lampert's. We should really do something there. So it's hard to say that the landscaping plan is ever perfect until you kind of see it. But
Well,
as far as
can
siding goes, I
you
think
tell me right now, Julie or Jim, what the length of those walls are, and we can make that determination? That's a question that we just need an answer for, and that the answer will determine what has to be done with it.
I can't access your pages, so let me search to see if I can find it somewhere here. I'm sure I have it.
Jim, Chris Herzog is on this call. He can give you that.
Okay, Chris.
Yep. The walls in question specifically, I'll just go through all four elevations. The west elevation is 100 feet long. The south elevation is 108 feet long. You'll have to excuse me. I need to open up my own set of drawings because the ones that came through in the email are a little grainy.
Yep.
Yeah, open up my set here.
So Denise, I got a question for you while they're opening those files. Does everything that we've already brought forth that has to, in essence, be revised or tweaked to what was before us, have we reached a point with this, with the number of differences that we should consider tabling this until staff and Jim's contractors have a chance to formulate all this for us to look at better?
Well,
Just a question. I'm just.
Yeah, I think if we can get some answers tonight, that will help them move forward. If the Plan Commission so chooses, I also think that preliminary approval could be given but that doesn't really mean anything, Julie, does it? He wouldn't be able to, because you wouldn't be giving a zoning permit until there was actual approval, so they couldn't break ground or do anything quite yet.
Right, they couldn't break ground, but it gives them some assurance that they're on the right track and they might, they can start doing like maybe some electrical plans or some HVAC plans, spending more money on their planning processes.
Because I wouldn't give approval, personally, me, on the siding, the stop sign, that's been taken care of. The parking is fine. I don't love the design. I don't know how anybody else feels about it. But it's functional for a boat dealership. And then I'm just trying to find in the code where it talks about any wall longer than 50 feet.
Denise, I've got it in my version of the code. I just found it's page 31.
Okay, I was on page 30. Okay.
Look under parent 1.
Yep.
Plan commission shall apply at a minimum the following standards when considering a conditional use permit for storage buildings. That doesn't apply here. So then you go on to 2 new apartment buildings.
This is not it.
Okay.
I know we've talked about it on many different developments. Janelle, do you have any recollection?
I know on residential, it's a lot. We talk about 20% of the wall. It can't, you have to have the wall broken up or offset.
Well, what if we just give Jim some feedback and say we want that really long wall broken up with some architectural features and then we can come back to him with the specific, the specific code requirements, but I think that Jim's gonna try and do something that's right by us if we give him a little bit of feedback, if everybody's on board for that.
Right, right. It could be like with other projects. It's a little more time consuming where you just do some horizontal siding, partway up and then vertical. I think the windows on the west and the south elevation either need to be larger or you need to break those walls up with something. How you put the siding on, bump outs. Gosh, I wish I could remember where that was.
So Julie, this would be my question for you. With the complexity of what we're hearing about and the choices that would be involved for Jim or any other owner in this position, with all those kinds of decisions and stylistic assessments to be made, how would us, how would Jim be, after some sort of approval tonight, be going and saving time by working on electrical and air conditioning, like you mentioned? It would seem to me Jim's got enough to work on stylistically with this siding. And I guess that's where I'm coming from and saying, are we not at a point that it just isn't sensible to say, let's table this until you guys get a chance together to work this further?
Well, we wouldn't table it. What we could, preliminary approval means, yeah, we
Postpone it,
like
I
this.
should say.
Pardon me?
I should say postpone. We don't want to say table
Oh,
anymore.
exactly. Yeah. Well, the preliminary is saying, yeah, we like the idea of this boat dealership. We like the track you're going on. Keep working at it, versus no, this isn't going to happen. Stop wasting your time. He can move forward having some assurance that yes, he is going to get approval for a boat dealership there. That's the preliminary approval saying, yeah, we like this idea. We support this. We're moving forward. We've got to work out details. So you're giving him that preliminary approval so he can proceed. He can keep making investments in the property. He can keep working on engineering, designing, going to the bank, ordering boats, whatever it is that Jim has to do. But that's what a preliminary approval does. In this case, I think we would say we're giving him preliminary approval, but when he comes back for final plan review, we want to see a sample that wood sample or siding sample that meets code. We want to see a landscaping plan that shows more mature landscaping or decorative landscaping around the building. We want to know more about that future addition so we can make sure there's enough parking and that future addition won't violate open space requirements. And we just think the wall is too long. He needs to break up that wall and bring something back to us to show us how that wall is more aesthetically pleasing. And then on his site plan, we'd like to see that stripe stop on there for the pedestrian crossing. And based on that or whatever else we want, he knows if he comes back for that, there's a good chance he might get that approved and it might move on to the development agreement stage.
I mean, do any other plan commission members have any other comments, thoughts, ideas, things that they would like to see changed? Patrice?
Yeah, I agree with you, Denise. I'm not in love with this building plan. It's very industrial to me, flat roof. I think if the siding can, fit more into Sister Bay and into the neighborhood there, that would be helpful. Maybe some more brick on the front. I mean, it just looks like a car wash to me. I think there could be a lot of more improvements, even if there was a facade on the top of the roof to break up that flat roof or something. That is just my opinion, but that's the way I'm thinking.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Ron, Nate?
I guess when I'm looking at it, it is a little bit industrial in use, but I guess I'm envisioning all that glass there, and I'm seeing that in there, and it's hard to do. I mean, I guess I'm kind of thinking about when you drive up 4257 in Sturgeon Bay, and you see some of the boat dealers there that have got the big glass windows, and that's quite attractive looking, and that does not come through on the drawing. But I think that there is certainly some room for tweaking on there, and I personally wish we would permit metal siding carefully, but I know that's a slippery slope because aluminum siding is also metal siding. But I think realistically, that's beyond the scope of this project. That's not going to happen in that timeline. It's something we should look at a future date. I would be for giving preliminary approval with the understanding that there are some adjustments we'd be looking for.
Okay, were you guys looking for the portion of the code that talks about the long walls?
Yes.
You want to go to 66.1050.
Tell me a
And-
page number, Janelle.
Okay, it's on page 133.
Oh, I was only 100 pages off.
I was 2 off. Okay, what subsection are you looking at, Janelle?
Okay, if you go to.
Oh, under site
it
plan and
starts at
architectural
fence
review.
Fenestration entrances, then it go to sub B, sub 2, large blank walls. Like right at the very top of the page. So it'll, sub B is fenestration entrances. And then it says design openings is 1, 2 is large blank walls.
$66.1055.
No, 1050.
Okay, then our page number.
Oh, that's a different page number.
That's why I could not find it.
Okay, so 1050.
Yep. Then it's sub B,
Got it.
sub 2 it starts on. So at the top of the page, it's gonna say fenestration entrances. See that, where by sub B?
Well, sub B is sureties.
Okay, no, it's under site plan and architectural review. Are you in there?
Yep.
Okay, so then if our numbers are different, let me see what subsection this is. So here's 26. 7. Okay, go to 66.1055,
Okay, that's where we were. Okay.
sub B.
Architectural Review Board.
Yep, now that's in that section. Okay, then you want to go down like 3 pages.
3 pages.
Yeah, it's 66.1055, should start at the
Okay.
bottom of the
Oh, I
page.
got it. Page 135, fenestration entrances.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, large blank walls which are exposed to view must be avoided by creating horizontal and vertical interest, utilized fenestration related detailing and articulation to provide scale and relief to the building facade. These architectural characteristics shall be easily identified by the viewer. That talks about it, but someplace in the code that says you have to do something if they're 50 feet or longer. But at least this is here.
Again, I think that we asked Jim to keep that in mind and say, hey, we don't like big plain walls with no architectural features on it, and give them a
Right.
chance to respond to that. I
Right,
think
and
whatever the
we'll
code is-
find, yeah, we'll find the right place by the next meeting.
Well, and also, I mean, like, I don't believe that Jim is gonna try and do the bare minimum. He's gonna try and do what we're looking for. So
Yeah,
I don't think we need to worry about the code on there. Not that we shouldn't hold him accountable to the code, but I'm not particularly worried about saying this is the exact,
Sure.
the exact detail.
okay. So if that's how we have basically pertaining to that, then I want to go into lighting. I have a bunch of questions. Maybe they're easily answered. On page 104, is this interior lighting? The LDN4 switchable? Or is this exterior?
So there was an entire lighting package submitted. There's exterior lighting and interior lighting.
Okay, I could care
we
less
just-
about indoor.
We just kind of submitted everything.
Okay, but is this from Lithonia Lighting? Is that indoor?
So I'm sorry, I'm having trouble following along because my page numbers are not matching up to the page numbers that you're describing.
Okay.
I only had the attachments. Can you tell me the fixture of the lighting, the number of the number of the light fixture, please?
It
LDN.
says LDN4 switchable. Looks like it's
so-
all chrome or metal.
Yep, so that would either be an interior light or there would be 2 or 3 downlights above the front entrance canopy that extends over the front entryway. That would be specifically just down lighting.
Okay. Now, I think that I think Nate came up with this on setting kind of a standard for lighting, which was 2700K. Is that correct, Nate?
I think that I would prefer 2700K, but 3000K is where I think that we landed, and just say we'd prefer it to be 2700K because it gives you when you go to 2700K, it really reduces your options just to be the warmer side of the lighting.
Okay, and we want the warm white, not the blue white, correct?
Yeah, that's what that color, that the temperature color is.
Okay, that's what that temperature color is. Okay, so I just wanted them to be aware of that because I'm just continuing to scroll down.
There's a lot of these fixtures, and they have multiple color options.
Yeah, if you let us know what color option, what color rating, what Kelvin rating you would like to have, we will make sure that all the light fixtures abide by that Kelvin rating.
2700. That's what I think.
Yeah. Yeah, like the stick exterior wall stem.
Mhm.
It stated that it was white LED light engine. and it came in at 3,000, 3,500 or 4,000 K. So if you can't get it in a 2,700, I guess 3,000 will be okay, but it talks about white LED, so I don't know. Is that gonna be the white that we don't like?
No, that's, so if the 3,000 is gonna be that warmer white.
Okay,
So like when they're saying white, the 3,000, 3,500, 4,000 are all going to be relatively warmish whites. It's not like a 6,000 or 7,000 K, which is gonna be real cold or cool white.
okay,
I think that the 3,000 is gonna work for what you're thinking of.
Okay.
Yeah,
We've had
would it be
in the past.
Would it be permissible to set the bar at 3,000 K?
I think we say 3,000 K and then ask if you can go lower, we'd be prefer that, but we don't need a, 3,000 K would be a reasonable line.
yeah,
Okay.
And I think too, we have to remember, I know when Chris was designing this, when I reviewed it, I reviewed on how the code was written. So if we want something less, we should probably get that in the code. So they design their projects according to what we really want.
I mean, this is a conversation we've had. We should probably try and incorporate that into code. But I mean, I guess we're fortunate that most of the developers we've worked with have been receptive to asking for input on that. But I understand what you're saying, Julie. If we don't have that in the code, people are gonna go design to something, they're just guessing if we don't have it in writing.
Yeah, because we reviewed it based on code.
Well,
So,
that said, we can do, Chris is, my builder has done great work with the buildings we've done so far, so we'll do 3,000 and we'll try for less because it's more pleasing light. Doesn't matter. I mean, I know it should be in the code, but we're gonna do what we want to do, what we need to do to make this. Look, everyone's got an opinion on how this might be made better, so we want to hear it all, right?
yeah, yeah. And you'll try to make us all happy, but I don't know if that will happen.
Well, it's not, you can't make everyone happy, but
That's right.
You can make everyone believe that you care as much as they do, and you're gonna come up with, here's what we want to do to make this building work economically, but at the same time, you guys all feel proud, because you don't want to approve something and then have everyone call you the next day and say, I can't believe you guys approved that piece of crap building.
Oh, that has happened, and where we've had to approve things because it was allowed in the code, even though we didn't like it. That has
Well,
happened many times.
So my question, and I know you might have more, but I've noticed somebody's sharing some things in the chat about Shipwreck Brewery and architectural metal siding. So, notwithstanding my previous comments regarding siding, is architectural metal siding, I guess I want a little clarity on that, because if everyone's like, oh, this building's beautiful, and that's metal siding, is it, if you guys think a metal sided building looks great, but you can't approve it per code, then I guess we should get clarity on that. Like if I made if Chris came with a metal siding that you thought was wood, are you even allowed to approve it if it's actually metal?
No,
So then then that's why I said before, I don't think that we should, don't make me crazy by changing the code in 2 months. And I spent 20% more to do wood. But at the same time, if you can't approve, you can't approve. That's just,
Jim, 2 months is a wild optimistic on how long it takes to
I know,
change
Chris,
code. I mean, but we could make all kinds of wild, crazy changes in the next 6 months. I mean, it's something that I have feelings about. I think Denise,
that's
she
the
needs
risk.
some examples.
That's just a risk that you take when you build anything. But I don't want to get into arguments honestly, if I was in your shoes, I'd say we could ask for things that aren't in the code. And if the builder wants to give them to us, that's great. But to allow things to happen that are expressly prohibited in the code, if they are prohibited, then we're getting into the whole process. You get mixed at the board level, and I don't want that.
Jim, just so you know, we did talk about when we were reviewing it that metal was not allowed. And the question was this type of siding, this aluminum siding, this architectural, and I forget the special name of it, did that qualify as metal? And that's why that question was brought to the plan commission was, you know, do you consider this metal? Or because this has this architectural flair and everything, would this be okay? And like I said, it was just a simple question, and I think we've heard, no, they don't like it. So
What's the, does the
that's just
code,
something that has to be addressed on the new plans.
is the code explicit? I mean, I don't think anyone read it. I don't need it to be read, but it's not, we're assuming that it's explicit.
It
It's
is.
So I hope-
explicit.
It is,
All right, good.
unfortunately.
Okay, so then we have summarized what needs to be addressed and brought back at next month's meeting.
This is Chris speaking. May I ask a couple of questions, please, just to dial in a little bit further and ensure that the next time that you see something, it's more to your liking?
Sure, Chris.
Can you, or anybody in the committee, please just elaborate a little bit more on what defines an architectural feature? Like specifically, I mean, is that just mean a different material or cladding type? Is it variety? Is it a change in, you know, can you elaborate on that a little bit more just to help me out?
Sure, it is variety. It is the direction that the exterior is put on. So you could have horizontal and vertical, you could have stone and siding or brick and siding. Probably one of the easiest things that you could do is to create, you know, more of a landscape perimeter around the whole building and plant, you know, 5 or 6 foot trees to break that up and give them time to grow, and that is also acceptable. Might be the
Okay.
cheapest option, I don't know.
So dialing in on that a little bit, if I may, the west elevation, which I think is the elevation that everybody kind of had in mind, bringing up the 50-foot wall regulation. Would it be suitable to screen that wall with plantings?
Denise, have we done that in the past? Because I want to say that had to be a part of the building, not landscaping.
Not landscaping?
I don't recall any time that we've done it being landscaping. I mean, it's deliberately vague, in my opinion, because there's a number of things you can do to break up that big area.
Well, I have a vague recollection that, did we do it at the end of Bittersweet for those storage buildings? Did they just put up landscaping?
They actually had some features in there, and also they had a lot of, they didn't have that long of a wall because of the garage doors on a lot of the sides of it.
Okay.
But we did require some additional screening, but I don't think that was because that was in addition to everything else of the project.
Is this the wall facing Lampert's?
Yes.
Okay.
So I mean, people will see that wall, and there's not a site plan here that shows, you know, exactly where Lampert's is and where the mobile gas station is. The mobile is, are you closer to the road than the mobile gas station?
Yeah, I think so.
So
Yes.
everybody pulling into the mobile and that driveway and that access road to that property or to the old quarry property, will see the back of the building also. If it was situated someplace else, I would say that we'd be a little less concerned about the rear building, but because if its placement is in front of the mobile, then it's got to be better broken up than what it currently is also.
And yeah, so that would be the back wall facing the old quarry, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the south elevation, I'm presuming.
Yeah. No, yeah. So the Lampert side and the south side. I think that Chris and I could. I love that word fenestration, the German word for window. So, I mean, honestly, we can get super creative or we can add a couple windows.
Super
what do you-
creative, I think Plan Commission would be more like, or you could find a happy medium between both.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not this particular objection. I mean, there's a little cost to it, but I don't think that it's insurmountable by any stretch.
Okay. Chris, did you have other questions?
Yes, I did. Two actually. One question, then one request. You had mentioned before just about more landscaping. Can you elaborate a little bit more on specifically what you're looking for in terms of more?
Sure, that was just around the building. I can't, and I'm trying to scroll back to where that color rendering was.
Okay, so let me
So
jump
I
in. Sorry,
couldn't-
let me jump in on there. The rendering is really only for illustrative purposes only. The landscaping is just, for lack of a better term, it's for flair, so that when we were showing and presenting the building to Jim and Dana, that they understood that it wasn't just going to be a building surrounded by concrete, that there was going to be some level of planting around it. The landscape plan, the physical landscape plan is the accurate depiction of where plantings would go and what plantings there are and the quantity of such.
Right, which I can't read very well, yes.
Okay. So
I don't want-
perhaps. Oh,
I don't
go ahead,
want to
Jim.
block, I don't want to block the view of the big windows with landscaping. That said, the best example of how good of a job we did was to look at our old stage building, where we've layered in flowers, plants in a way that, in this case, we can obstruct because there's no windows. But I don't want to put stuff in front of the glass windows. That said, I have a lot of trees on my property in Nelson Bay, and I love trees. So I'm not interested in this being a 2.5 acre site with a metal warehouse in the middle of it and 4 flowers. There are trees, there are bushes, there's layering. And like I said earlier, plantings that don't need to be overwatered that will look great, whether we have a sort of a drought or a rainy season. But
Right,
it's
no,
really-
it
it's just
still
difficult to
is,
illustrate it.
it still is on page 88, the landscaping plan. I think there still just needs to be, I can't tell the depth of the planting beds. I just think there needs to be a little bit more. If you're going to stick with a similar design that you currently have to help soften. I'm not asking you to put any plantings in there that are going to grow taller than the windows, but I think maybe the beds themselves could be a little bit deeper than what I'm seeing, although I don't know because it doesn't say what the depth of those are. Is it 18 inches? Is it 2 feet? Maybe it should be 3 feet. So there can be a little bit more.
So I can help you out with it a little bit. It's on sheet C200. They actually are dimensioned. The bed depth along the direction are we? The north. Well, geez, I'm getting turned around. Would you mind if I just share my screen? Would that be okay?
If you're allowed to, I think somebody has to give you permission.
Janelle?
Oh,
Janelle?
no, it's disabled.
Yeah, Heidi or Janelle have to give you permission for that. I think Janelle's trying.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't because I'm on my phone.
No
Let me
problem.
call you.
No problem. I'll try to do my best to describe. So the
You have
planting.
permission now, Chris. I just couldn't find you in my list.
Okay, let me try this here. Here we go. All right, can everybody see the screen?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So the planting beds in these two areas are 4 feet deep, 4 feet off of the building wall. The planting bed in this area is approximately 2 feet. You know, I think it would be, I'll speak on behalf of Jim. I think he would be acceptable to increasing the depth of this bed to 4 feet. But Jim, I'll let you chime in on that, but that would be an easy way to, I guess, increase that bed depth there.
I'd be happy with 3.
Okay.
I think we require 3.
And is there, can you round it around the corner where you're gonna possibly have a future addition? Oh, that's a concrete driveway. Okay.
Correct. Yep. And by the way, about the future edition, that wasn't meant to put on there to confuse. It was just showing, it was showing Jim what potential expansion he had in the future if he so decided to expand. So it's not that we're planning on that. It's not like, oh, in 5 years, we're going to do this. It's just meant to show what the potential could be.
Okay.
Right. Right.
And we have this planting bed out here. We have, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah,
5,
all
6,
that
7.
looks good from what I
Okay.
can tell.
So it's just this, you want a little bit of more of attention to this area.
Yeah.
Okay.
And am I
Um,
muted? I can't.
Nope, you're on, Jim.
So the concrete driveway, that's another thing that we've kind of gone back and forth on. And it could be that when we sit down and look at the final budget after some of these changes, that might be something that we'd have to eliminate because it would save money. Thus, it would become more landscaping, although that would be used occasionally to access the front of the sales office. But in Door County, as we all know, we can do that on the grass and it doesn't really mean a whole lot. So I think,
Oh, I
think that
didn't
the-
even know there was an overhead door there until Chris shared his screen. I couldn't even read that before. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I can flip over to an elevation if that will help out here quickly.
I think that would help, yeah.
Okay, so this
There it is.
this is the elevation that would face
Yeah.
on a skew Lamberts. So this is a full glass overhead door, and I believe this is the section of wall that I think everybody was concerned about maybe being broken up. Is that accurate?
And yes, and I think the other 3 windows, they just look out of scale. They just look rather small. Maybe they're quite large because of the height of the building, but in they just look small on that really tall wall.
Yeah, they're office windows, but
This wall too is the one, I know we were talking about what does it face, but this faces the lumber yards, meat, or not meat, I'm sorry, I'm getting hungry. The wood bins where they store and stack all the wood and the lumber outside, those long wooden structures long structures that they have.
Well,
What you
see, and
just,
maybe it would be helpful for us, I'm sorry, Nate, if you could take an aerial photo out of the county web map of all the buildings and then draw yours in so we can see what actually will be seen from the road and what would not with the mobile and Lamberts next to you. I think that
So-
would be extremely helpful.
I've done one better for you already. So I have this building modeled. I also have Lambert's building modeled just in 3D geometry. And
Okay,
this is set to an aerial image that shows the position of the proposed building in relation to the gas station in Lambert's. I have some preset views. So this is traveling. I'm sorry, I always get confused when I'm in this area.
North.
So we're traveling north. We're directly in front of Lambert's at this point. You can see that this is and I don't have this overhead door completely drawn in, so you have to forgive me there. But this is the view that folks are going to see of the building when they're driving past. This is the first glimpse. And, you know, it's not until they're almost in front of the building. Let me zoom in here a little bit. So when they're in front of the building, this is kind of the view that one gets. You know, you get a slight, of ever so slight glimpse of this wall. So I guess the proportionality of these windows over here, you might find to be a little bit different than looking at it like at the broad side of a barn.
Sure.
What you just did there with the siding, that to me breaks that up.
And, you know, I quickly did that as a suggestion, and that stays with the same material that we are incorporating in other portions of the building already, in front and by the entrance.
Or just speaking for myself, but I mean, like that would be sufficient for me to break up that wall, especially if you saw it in a rendering. I think that it would.
Yep, that would work for me.
Chris, can you do a little aerial view again, just so we can get a sense of who can see this from what angle? From above. Yeah, there you go. That's really helpful. And then zoom out just a tad. There you go.
Yep, so we
There-
can see the mobile.
Yep. So that's. Oh, wow. I thought it was actually facing 42 more directly. That's,
You
man,
might
this is
want to
a-
tweak that, Jim.
Yeah. Well, this is a great, and we can, but I mean, this is a great view. Now, the rear of the building, I guess we have that in the code, but you know, that's where I would have thought that we would have some screening so that even if you're at the mobile, you wouldn't necessarily see the rear, but we'd have a line of cedar trees along the left side there, so that if you're at the mobile gassing up, you would see only the front third or front half of the building. Just because I don't want, you know, we're gonna have a dumpster back there, and, you know, I don't want to have, like, it's not going to be a place where we dump old boats. We have a service center and storage there, so that we're not going to have anything like that here. But I
So,
still would
Jim,
like to use trees to block.
your preference would be to put a line of cedars here.
Yeah,
Perfect.
because then, you know, it's natural, it fits. As long as they're not in the snowmobile trail, we'll move them in a little bit. But just so that the general idea is that the only thing you see is the beautiful front of the building. And it's cool, and you're not seeing a dumpster, you're not seeing a, you know, one trailer that might be parked back there. I like that view right there. I don't want anyone to see that view. I'd prefer they only see the front half of the building.
Okay.
So we'd see some cedars here, and then that would screen this view.
Yep. And then if you do that, there's really no way that anyone could see the rear of the building unless, I mean, I've been told by you guys that that access road along the mobile station is never really going to be developed. So, you know, unless Chris sells off that lot behind the mobile, we could always add trees later. But my concern was more that people gassing up at the mobile or buying a sandwich at the mobile wouldn't be seeing the rear of our building or the side or the garage door, that only the front third.
Okay.
I
You
wanted to,
incorporate that into the plan, then that looks good to me. What about other members?
I think that's a lot better.
That was really, really helpful, Chris. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You earned every bit of your pay just with that.
You made me nauseous because I have real issues with motion sickness and that.
I'm sorry about that. So can we do one step further? Can I, as long as we have you here and as long as it's already past 8 o'clock, I mean, what's a couple more minutes, right? Can I just take you to a website and show you the wall panel that we had originally planned for the building? And
Go ahead,
we
Chris.
may take your
Sure, but you've got to
temperature.
stay here till the end of the meeting then, because it's past 8 o'clock, but we still have more meetings. So you,
That's, oh boy.
well, you put us at the end. Butler Wall Systems.
Okay. So this wall panel is what was originally planned. There are several example, that's a bad example.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't like that at
you-
all.
So you can see, you can see how this panel interacts with other architectural elements, some of which we're incorporating into this building with glass and different style panels, but this is an accurate depiction of what it looks like, in person. And I absolutely certainly happy to drop off a hard sample. But it does differ and vary from what I would call a typical metal panel in that fasteners that attach this panel are attached in the indented area where they're not easy. I mean, they're not visible. On the examples that you're seeing here, you don't see any fasteners at all, unless you're standing, 2 feet in front of it and square on. So I just wanted to provide that as more of an example for you to say, no way in HE double hockey sticks, or, oh yeah, maybe that might work, just to give us, an understanding.
Yeah, I vote no.
I vote no.
Yeah, doesn't look good.
I think we should permit it, but I don't think that we can do it in a timeline that's there. And I think this would have to go through an extensive review process to vet it out. So.
Well, you guys, I mean, the village board, who can override the code?
No one.
We have to change the code, which is not an insignificant,
I don't
quick
want us,
process.
I don't want us to get down a path of, oh, maybe this will work, or maybe that, believe me, I would love for something to work that's easy. But if the code is the code, and I don't want to spend 3 months fighting with the village board and you guys, when everyone sort of knows in the back of their mind that they can't vote yes.
Yeah, I know. Well, most of us just said no. So you're gonna have to find something else.
Yeah.
Can I
So
ask, can I ask their committee their opinion on this panel?
It's
They know it's a-
boring
it's-
and bland.
They know it's a trick question. I prefer paper mache. I think if we just use paper mache, we'd be in. As long as it doesn't rain.
I'll get some epoxy on it, Jim.
Got it. All right, we'll come back. So
Okay.
what I'm hearing you guys say is the landscape, we're making a few small changes to the bed depth. They're already bigger than we thought. Chris did a good architectural flyby for us, and we're adding cedar trees. And we'll put that in writing. That's not a problem. So I'm hearing you say that's not an issue. We've agreed to protect the bike path with stop signs and anything else that we would want to do to promote that. But and then breaking up the wall. Chris is perfectly capable of knowing how to do that. But the big issue is the siding. Am I correct?
Yep. In my
Yes.
opinion.
Yep.
And the
Okay.
lighting, you should try and get down to 2,700 versus 3,000.
Oh, the lighting, right. We're gonna do better than the code and try to get as close to what you guys would like and what Nate would like.
Okay.
That's no problem, because I know that we'll all like it. I mean, it'll be better.
Okay.
So
So
we'll
we
work
do
on-
have to move on. We still have a lot to talk about. So you have your directions from the Plan Commission. We look forward to seeing you next month. And good luck.
Thank you. Can you, I really need to hear, I don't need a preliminary, although Julie, I did appreciate that idea. I need to hear that you guys are saying, yes, Jim, we're behind this project. You just have to tweak it. And then we're gonna go.
Well,
full
we can
force.
make if somebody cares to make a motion for preliminary approval, that they can do that.
I'll make a motion for preliminary approval.
Motion by Bell,
Second,
second by Kane. All those in favor respond with an aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. There you have it.
Thank you
For
very
the
much.
record, Denise, for the record, I just want to clarify for the minutes, that's preliminary approval, subject to the issues that were raised this evening.
Correct.
Right. Which we can get written down, but we'll work on this pretty quick and we'll be done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so,
Denise, I just want to say something here. I see somebody labeled as Zoom user making what I perceive as constructive comments. I'm just uncomfortable having somebody without identification making comments in a public meeting. I don't know if that person could identify themselves. That would make me a lot more comfortable. I don't know if that's a reasonable request or not, but I do see a lot of comments coming from this person.
I think that's a reasonable request. It's like getting an anonymous letter.
Yes.
Yes, I agree with you, Nate.
Okay, item 6F, preliminary review waiver request for gas pricing sign illumination at the BP gas station 2431 South Bay Shore Drive. I would just like to start by saying that it was many, many years ago that the village zoned out internally lit signs for very specific reasons. The last one that we had in the village was Bay Lake Banks, and when MWTC bought that, that sign was removed and they put up a new wooden sign. I looked in the code and it is strictly prohibited. It's on page 108 of my code, so no waiver is allowed. And I don't know how we would change something when there's 3 gas stations in town, change something. And just in case there's somebody that doesn't know, I currently own a gas station with my sister. Change the code for one person. I think that would be unfair. I had an internally lit sign, and when I changed gas brands, I had to have a custom made shell sign with a custom made price sign made out of wood. And it is no longer there because when the state highway came in and redid the highway, it happened to be in the right of way. So I really no longer have a shell sign. I just have a price sign on the building. So that's a little bit of history. So does anybody care to comment or?
Denise, I remember the first time I was the sole dissenting vote on Plan Commission, and that was in terms of internally illuminated open signs. And we do allow internally illuminated open signs. I have some very strong feelings about the character of the village being impacted negatively by internally illuminated signs, and those open signs kind of, I think about that every time I see one at night, but I don't think that this is something, even if we could do it, I don't want to provide a waiver for this. I don't think we should.
We can't provide a waiver, it sounds like, correct?
It says it's strictly prohibited.
Okay, so if it's strictly prohibited, it would seem that a motion to deny the request would be in order.
Yes.
All right, I motion that we deny the request as noted.
Motion
I
by
second.
Zaleski, second by Champeau. Any further discussion? All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, item 6G, preliminary review expansion of condominium Marina View condominium 10722 North Bay Shore Drive. This is a huge issue to me. What Al is asking for is no longer allowed in the code. I do not remember. I believe Nate, Marge, and I were probably the only 3 people on the Plan Commission that was involved with that development at that time. And I can just say that I have zero recollection of them ever presenting something larger or coming back to add on to. It was always a 12 unit. So I am very much confused on how we're here.
I don't recall it being anything other than a 12 unit. Although I do remember some rather heated discussions in there that may have clouded some of those memories.
I remember the heated discussions, yes. So Al, I'll give you an opportunity to speak.
So yeah, when we did the development agreement, we had a driveway going through there, and you didn't want the driveway going through on Bay Shore. So we eliminated that. So when we did that, we because of the green space, we asked to have 2 future units. So it was agreed upon. It was in the development agreement, and then the declaration was given to all the owners.
This,
So when you say the declaration was given to all the owners, does that mean they all have condo docs that state, just so you're aware, there's going to be 2 more units in this building?
Yes.
But the Plan Commission and the Village Board has no control over condo docs. We don't.
Well, it was
usually
approved. It was approved in the minutes. I think Janelle had found that in the minutes, and then that was in the development agreement.
so this is not a permitted use in this district anymore, correct, Denise?
Correct.
So if that project was completed, then this would be a project that is happening after that change of use, or the change in zoning happened.
Correct.
Is that the case? I mean, like, I don't just, I'm asking Julie as well, Denise. No offense, I just wanted to have her chime in as well.
I'm sorry, I'm looking something up here. Your question was, Nate, just restate it again, I'm sorry.
So when Marina View happened, the Plan Commission did not want to, we didn't
Correct.
want what it was happening, but it was permitted under the code.
Right,
Had no choice but to allow it.
yep.
So
No,
that is completed. Now this is an addition, that project is done. Anything additional that was not completed at that time would fall under the new zoning.
That is correct. The way the code is written is, it's a non-conforming use. So to expand a non-conforming, well, code says you can't expand a non-conforming use. You would, unless you could meet code, and the units that would be proposed would still not be able to meet code because we don't allow the expansion down there. The only way, and that's why it's before you, is this is a situation where it's non-conforming use cannot be expanded, but he has the plans which show there was going to be 2 more units. So the question, like I said in the staff report, is, are you going to allow him to expand it with the 2 more units? Al realizes that it's a non-conforming use right now, and he's aware of the rules. The only question comes down to, do you honor what's on that condo plat or not, the map? And we didn't approve the declaration, you're right, but we did approve the condo plat, the map, which showed the future 2 units.
So hang on one second, Rob.
Yep.
The condo plat is the second document in here on page 133.
Let me get back to that. The condo
Or-
plat is the one that says future 2 units.
All right, that's page 132. Because on page 133, it says reserved for future use by developer. So it says these 2 maps say 2 different things.
They do
And-
say 2 different things.
And where in the development agreement, which isn't in our packet, so I can't confirm or deny what Al is saying, that it states in the development agreement that they're allowed to build two more units.
Yeah, the development agreement, when I looked through it, I could not find that. The only thing is in the development agreement, it had that map. So it didn't discuss the units, but the map that was in the development agreement showed the units.
Okay, one thing I'd like to state is that this project was only allowed under the zoning code at the time if the first floor was retail. And there was a lot of discussion about not having retail. So the compromise that was struck at that time was that 4 of the units had to be used for transient rentals according to the code at that time. And that's how this was built. Code said retail. Plan Commission decided to compromise and do 4 transient units. And maybe there's even more than 4 in there now. I have no idea. It is the one project that I personally received the most complaints on. Too big, too close to the road, too whatever, which to a certain degree is here nor there. It's what the code allows, what the setbacks are, what the height restrictions are, etc. I know that's my 2 cents, Rob.
Okay, so it sounds like, for starters, we have an apparent discrepancy. We don't have the development agreement in front of us. Al's perception was Janelle at some point noted something in minutes. I was not part of the board or the plan commission at the time. I'm going off of what I'm hearing now. And that Al's perception was this was part of the development agreement. Julie mentioned from her review of the development agreement, it's not in the agreement, but that what is attached to the agreement, or I'm not sure what you meant by part of the agreement, but it would seem like what you're saying, Julie, is there's a development agreement like we're normally used to, and then there was this drawing in there. Is that what you found?
Yeah, so just
Okay, let me
clarification,
just stop you there for my question then. So that drawing is the plat, correct?
Correct.
Which was approved after the development agreement. Correct?
Drawing number 2 was approved as part of a development agreement. So it was part of a board packet, board approved.
Okay, but then it would have cleared the plan commission then?
Yes.
So that's, I guess the first question would be, okay, is there certainty to the fact that this development agreement included the drawing? And maybe Al, is that what you, when you were referencing that this was part of the development agreement, is that what you were meaning, Al, that the drawing was in there?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And it stated, it was approved for future use, so that's why.
Okay, so then my next question then, Julie, would be, okay, so that was in there. It was a plan commission sent it to the board, and what I'm hearing is the board approved that.
Yes, this second drawing that you see was part of a development agreement regarding a sidewalk issue. So that I think everybody was focused on the sidewalk issue at that time. But yes, this diagram, which shows these future units, was part of what was approved by the plan commission, reviewed by the plan commission and recommended to the board and the board ultimately
Okay,
approved it.
so then this was not part of the original design of the building development agreement?
Right, it was not part of the development agreement that approved the hotel motel condo.
Okay, so at some point they Al went back to the plan commission regarding a sidewalk, which also happened to include. So we needed a development agreement for a sidewalk.
Yeah, it was a discussion on a sidewalk that went to the committee and they did a development agreement. Between the development agreement that approved the hotel motel condominium and which didn't show the future 2 units, and the development agreement regarding the sidewalk issue, which showed the 2 units, between that time, a condominium plat was approved, which showed the 2 units, which is drawing number 1 in the packet. So you had development agreement for the use and the building, no extra units. Then you had condo plat, which showed 2 extra units. And then you had development agreement for a sidewalk issue that showed the 2 units.
That
Which was
included the
consistent with the
plat
condo
drawing.
plat.
That included the plat drawing that had been approved.
Yeah.
So apparently then the drawing went back to plan commission, or the board, one of the two, and that was approved. And
Yes.
then, so then if indeed that was the process, then the conversation about since then code has been changed or whatever, wouldn't there, when that code was redone, shouldn't there have been an understanding of the fact that, okay, we're revising this code to prevent this, however, this has already been approved in this instance? Or if we had this approval that was done, does that make it grandfathered in when we change some sort of an ordinance to prevent that from it would just seem like it's counterintuitive to me that if we're to expect current zoning or revised zoning to say this cannot happen, that it just seems in contrast to the fact that if all this cleared the plan commission and the board, that there was a drawing approved and then a new development agreement for a sidewalk that included the drawings for this, and then that got approved. Walk me through that, Julie. How then in a situation like that does, changing
So
zoning affect that?
yeah, and I think that's part of the quandary. So you had, he got approval for a building and X amount of units, which I think 12 units, not the 14, but 12 units. And he built that building and that permit eventually expired and the code changed. And he's coming back now after the permit has expired, after the code has changed, and wanting to develop the 2 units. So on one hand, you can look at it and say, your permit expired, that code changed, you're done. But his question is, but you knew all along there was going to be 2 more units. Why can't I apply for those 2 units?
I get that. That's why you're basically, what you're doing with different words is restating my question, which is if there was a process that went through the plan commission and the board that put forth these drawings, which we're looking at now, which were approved. And then after that, the zoning changed. Is that what is the legal process or stipulation in a situation like that, regardless of which project it would be. It happens to be this one tonight, but you know, is the fact that the zoning changed even part of this discussion because this was approved? Is what I'm hearing.
Well, was it approved?
Well, you just said it. You just said that there was a development agreement originally that got approved, and then there was a plat drawing that apparently we're looking at the copy of that got approved. And then there was a subsequent request for another development agreement for a sidewalk, which then included, oh, by the way, here's the plat drawing that got approved. And then that in totality was approved. That's what I'm hearing.
Before Julie answers that, I want to say something. There was no conversation that I remember at any time that the Plan Commission discussed that in the future, you know, we would like to add 2 more units. We're just not going to do it now. I do not ever remember the Plan Commission discussing that. So if there's a map that shows something, but the Plan Commission never discussed the future use of that, does
I
that
get
mean
your
that-
point, and I
does
agree.
that-
Yeah.
Does that mean we approved it? I don't think so.
But see, and that's what I'm just trying to sift through, Denise, is because if what is being stated by staff as accurate is, if I look at page 132 and 133 of our packet, or both of those pages, the renderings of this, if these renderings were quote unquote, if this is a direct replication of the plat, quote unquote, that was approved and then made part of the subsequent second development agreement for a sidewalk, regardless, it was a separate agreement. And then, oh, by the way, this was already approved. Then that's where my question comes in is, if no, you know, if you're saying, Julie, this is the drawing that was, that this is the plat that was approved, it says right on there, that's what a plan was. If this indeed is what that plat that got approved was.
Nate,
Is a motion to deny in order, or what are we ultimately looking to do here?
you can make a motion to deny.
I'll make a motion to deny this request.
I second that motion.
Motion by Bell, second by Champeau. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I would like to say, what would you like to see there then in that space? What would be a conditional use?
I don't know that any of us were prepared to answer that question, Al. I think we just like the green space. You can make a patio for all your people to utilize a larger space. I don't know. All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
I'm abstaining, Denise, and I just want to say for the record, I'm abstaining from the standpoint of, it seems like having legal advice on just where this whole thing is at would be more conclusive to me.
Okay.
So I abstain.
Okay. Motion still carried. Item 6H, proposed sidewalk policy. Julie?
Sure, the committee had asked for us to, Danny and I, to work on a sidewalk policy. You know, we did discuss it being 5 feet wide, and there always be an 11-foot easement if possible, if you can get that for construction and maintenance. To make that something you could actually enforce. I have some areas of the code that I think would need to be amended. And I'll just walk through that real quick. I think under the site plan and architectural review section, you'd want to make sure that you have the authority to require or to look at sidewalk widths and locations. You can see that highlighted in red in the packet there. And then we would want to require some language about sidewalks where we actually talk about sidewalks, saying that they shall be at least 5 feet in width. If the sidewalk is to be installed by the village, an 11-foot easement shall accommodate the sidewalk. For public safety purposes and potential infrastructure needs, sidewalk shall be separated from the road, curb, or road edge by a vegetated buffer of no less than 3 feet. And that meets some, as you read above, that meets some design guidelines that are recommended when you're looking at street design and sidewalk design. And then we'd actually want to add a definition of sidewalk, which I show in black, but it should have been in red. That would be a new definition we would add, because we do not even have a definition for sidewalk. With those changes there, I feel confident in the zoning code, we would have the ability to safely require the 5 feet, and there shouldn't be any issue. Now, I will say in the land division code, we talk a little bit about sidewalks. I've been working on that code for a couple months. It's still sitting here. I have added into that draft similar language. So whether you're making a subdivision or whether it's something going before the plan commission, we can still require a 5-foot sidewalk. Now, if this would pass or be adopted, we'd actually want to go back and also amend our engineering design guidelines. It's a book that we use, which talks about curbs and roads and sewer laterals and things of that nature. We'd want to make sure that that actually has that same language in there. So no matter what document you were looking at, they would all require the exact same thing.
Okay, I have a few questions to start us off with. So in your board report, you're talking about a 5-foot sidewalk with an 11-foot easement. Does that mean we're talking about 16 feet?
No, you're talking about 11 feet.
Okay, just clarifying. Under the second amend, it says that sidewalks shall be provided along all sides of the lot that abut a public street. So what is every street that we have a public street, except obviously the ones that are private? And does this, the way that it's worded, state that the village is going to put sidewalks in absolutely every single part of the village?
No, so, you know, in that parent 18, the black is what's already there, of course. And it's saying that there should be sidewalks along all the public streets. You know, if you have a corner lot, there should be sidewalks on the 2. It doesn't say the side that the village is going to put it in. As a matter of fact, that's why it says there, if the sidewalk is to be installed by the village, you know, then we would require a certain easement to work in. But no, there's nothing in here that says the village is required to put it in.
Okay, do we want to require people to put in sidewalks in every place in the village?
This code talks about where sidewalks are required, and that's not in here because it's nothing that would be amended. But it talks about, for example, if you're developing a residential lot, you do not have to put in a sidewalk. What the code says is, if there is a sidewalk there, you have to put a path to that sidewalk. It does, however, say that you need a sidewalk for commercial. It lists the type of uses that you have to have a sidewalk for. I think it's commercial, you know, the subdivision ordinance would require it if you're doing a new subdivision. Otherwise, it says commercial. I think in my, yeah, I think it just says commercial. I'd have to pull that up, to be honest with you.
I'm trying to look for it right now. I guess I would want to read where, though I think it here is on 131. And it's late and
Yeah,
to talk about this more deeply and maybe pull out the parts of the site plan and architectural review where it's talking about sidewalks, and maybe the current language is correct, or maybe we want to have a conversation on, is this what we really want it to say? Or maybe we need to tweak it better to define exactly maybe what districts. I don't know, I think.
okay, so the original intent was to get that a width in there.
Sure.
But if you want me to do that, that's, yeah, let's bring it back. If
I
you
don't
want
know
more,
how the rest of Plan Commission feels. And then the other question that I have is that where it states that no less than separated from the road curb or road edge by a vegetated buffer of no less than 3 feet, I'm concerned, especially if what we just dealt with the Whites tonight for the Peach Barn and their new restaurant, that you have a highway and we're going to start getting easements to put in sidewalks where we obviously want to have them, but I think all that should be curb and gutter. To have a sidewalk on a highway that it does not have curb and gutter, yep, somebody can still veer off the road, go over the curb, still hit.
Let me just
somebody.
agree with you that I think that we need to have a longer conversation. I think you're
Okay.
starting to have that longer conversation right now, though, but I do think that it warrants additional conversation and thought.
Okay, so can then motion to postpone?
I think Rob has had his hand up here for a little bit.
I'm sorry, I had the other screen. Sorry, Rob, I didn't see you.
I think part of that conversation has to include whether the village would benefit from a sidewalk policy that applies uniformly across the board, or if the village and residents and developers would all be better off if we handled sidewalk issues on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, I'll make a motion to postpone. Motion by Berto,
Second.
second by Bell. All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 6I, short-term rentals, potential map amendment, text amendment discussion. There is too much information that I feel we don't have, and especially to make a very serious change in our zoning code. I think Julie has come up with some other alternatives, but I think we need to bring all of the Plan Commission members up to speed on what happened. And I don't necessarily want to go just off of everybody's memory. I'd also like the Plan Commission to have an executive session to talk about this with their attorney. But I would ask that the Plan Commission members get minutes from all the Plan Commission meetings and the village board meetings that pertain to both of these developments. And so what's ever there, good, bad, otherwise, short, pages long, I don't know. but I just think that we need to do our due diligence, even to refresh my memory on what's written down on the conversations that were had when these projects were going through the approval process. So I would like staff to get that to us. I would prefer that as soon as they have it, that they send it out so that it can be reviewed, not just in our packet before the next meeting. Nate?
I think this needs to be a single purpose meeting because right now I don't think any of us are giving this as much attention as something that comes up at 6 o'clock. And this is very important to the village, and there's a lot of nuance to this. And I really feel like this should not just be a regular plan commission meeting. This should be a single item meeting. Special meeting for plan commission, because there's so many things to talk about in so many ways this connects to the rest of the community.
I think that's a great idea. Ron?
Yeah, I agree with Nate. Without the history of what has happened here, I don't know how you can possibly address this.
Okay. Well, then staff will try to reach out to everybody. See if we can't schedule a special meeting sometime. And so I'll make a motion to postpone.
Second,
Motion by Berto, second by Zashki. All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 6J, neighborhood park planning. Patrice, you had wanted to talk about this?
Yeah, I realized the village board met and they wanted to not address this at this time, or they're not interested in pursuing maybe a neighborhood park in South Sister Bay. But being the planning commission, I think for the future, we should think about that. There's so much population that has moved up to South Sister Bay, so many apartment complexes, lots of retired folks, tourists too, with all the hotels on the south end, and everything is downtown. It's not terribly safe for our young kids to walk down the hill, to get to the beach, to get to the park. I think it would serve the village well in the future to have some type of a neighborhood park on the south side of Sister Bay here to serve all the folks up here. I don't really trust the development or new development people saying that they will put a park in, just because I'm a victim of that. When I moved here 28 years ago, they promised to put in a park across the street from my house. It was part of their development agreement, whatever. It never happened. And now there's a brand new house built there. So I think it's something the village should consider, take it on for the future. I understand there's a lot going on and budget wise and everything, but it's something that I think we should keep open, an open discussion about.
And that is what Parks talked about. We don't, it's not that we dislike the idea. There's a lot of irons in the fire. There are a lot of issues. Parks also did not like the property. Just to kind of summarize what was discussed there. The village owns 13 lots in that area. One was sold to Paula Anschutz, who we dealt with earlier tonight. 8 were sold to the housing trusts for them to put single family housing on. These 3 lots here are larger in scope. I don't believe that they've been piped in for sewer and water yet. So there's the opportunity to do something different instead of single family homes there if the village so desires. And when the board made the decision to only sell the 8 lots, we wanted to keep the others and think about what we would do there. Doesn't mean that a park might not go there, but we were also talking a lot about housing. So we all agree that we need to keep it in mind and try to do the best that we can. And that is the biggest area where we are seeing development. So yeah, it's not, we don't want to forget it.
Good.
That was
Thank you.
the Parks Committee that did that too. That wasn't the village board, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's an important distinction. And Patrice, I think you bring up another point, my same point going back there, what you just said about it not being safe for people to go downtown. That is absolutely true. I think that we should do something about the parks closer to the people. But we should also keep look at the accessibility and make it so kids can go downtown. We can get there too. Not that we shouldn't do the parks up in the south end of Sister Bay as well. It's not an
So-
either or.
Is it the plan commission's wish that we postpone this and discuss it more, or take the lead from the Parks Committee and the village board? What is your desire?
I think part of it's a bigger discussion, and the points are all valid about South Sister Bay, but part of the discussion eventually has to be the due diligence of not just one park, not just one location, where you know, where in the village is the best spot or spots. And that was part of what led to Park saying, just keep this on the radar screen, but not right in the here and now, because there's a lot more to the discussion.
Okay, we'll talk about it then sometime when we have a plan commission, a shorter meeting.
So I'll make a motion, we postpone then?
Okay, motion by Bell,
Second,
second by Kane. All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, carried.
So postpone, when you postpone, there's a date in mind? Do we know when? Next
According
meeting?
to, what is that, Julie? According to,
So table means you're putting it on the table into perpetuity. You don't know when you're gonna discuss it again. And when you do, you take it off the table. When you postpone, it's to a certain date or a specific time.
How about by June
How about when we
30th?
talk about the land division code? Because the
Okay.
land division code talks about requiring developers to do stuff for parks.
Perfect, but when, we don't know when that's gonna happen.
January, but I didn't get to it. So,
I like the June date and we
Yeah,
get by June.
I don't
By
think we
June
should- I
30th.
think Patrice's point is very valid. I don't think we want to tie what we would decide to do with neighborhood parks to the separate requirement of a developer to do something with a park directly adjacent to a development that would be most likely on a smaller scale than what one of these new neighborhood
Yeah.
parks would be.
the only problem is, you can't require a developer to develop a park that is not in an adopted plan, which was kind of where this started. So, okay, June 30th.
Okay. Okay. Zoning report.
A little bit of building activity, kind of slow.
Zoning code violations.
That's my life. Spend a lot of time doing it.
Mm,
5 and 3 months. They consume a lot of time. But I was doing it. I wanted to try doing it monthly. It's just too hard to keep up with it. So I'm just going to continue to do it on a quarterly basis.
Okay.
And report it back to you.
Okay. All right, upcoming meetings. Next meeting Tuesday, March 28th, 2023. And we know everything that we have postponed already, so let's call it a night at 8:53. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Zashki,
Second.
second by Bell. All in favor, respond with an aye.
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 Opposed, carried. Thank you, everyone.